So there's a verse in the Bible where God says through a prophet, in that day, and we can talk about what that day is, I'm going to put my spirit in them and cause them to know me from the greatest of them to the least of them. And I challenge whether that's actually real talk or cap. If you are a Bible believer, the claim today is that your God does not want to be known. And I would love for someone to call and defend the idea that you could even know your God, a God, let alone your God. I don't think your God wants to be known. I think your God chose violence. And I'm going to explain what that means in a minute. I think your God chose violence, and I think your God chose wrong. I think your God chose against being known. And it's, to be fair, not just your God. I don't think if there is such a thing as a God, as God, if that's the right answer for why are we here, I don't think God wants to be known. And we can talk about that today. But before we go into any of that, what's happening? Welcome to Ichabod. I'm your host, Be Good, and I'm glad to be here with you. And I am joined by a God who does want to be known, a God who can be known. And he is right here with us in the heavenlies, hovering above my head, the God Norway, all hell Norway, as he is here with us, ready to speak from not from the clouds. He is the clouds. The talking cloud Norway is here. But your God, on the other hand, you cannot produce your God, even though you claim your God has produced you. When I look to see where your God is, he never shows up. So Norway is challenging all gods out there to a showdown. The showdown is to show up. Where is your God? Come on into Ichabod, come on into the chat, say what's up, and greet somebody in Reason's name. I see a few folks in the chat already. What's happening? Hey, Eddie and James Pesh, my guy. James, my sister said, I need to have you on more often. She enjoys our back and forth, the banter, the just the, investigating things and pontificating and what ifs and all that. So good to see you, man. Yeah, Christian, this is a call-in show, and even if you're not a Christian, if you're just and I don't mean to say just as if you're some kind of lesser theist, but I'm so familiar with Christianity, so forgive me for talking about it as if it's the faith. It's a faith among many faiths. But if you're a theist and you want to defend the idea that your God, A, can be known and B, wants to be known, this is the perfect opportunity to call and talk to a former theist. I was a Christian theist for 30 plus years of my life. And I keep hearing from people on a daily basis, I am the reason that they are theists today. They are followers of Jesus today because of the things that I did for 30 plus years. And me and Norway, we want to talk to you about your God's no-showness. So this would be a great time to call in. But until then, the link is in the chat. If you're watching this on Instagram, the link is in my bio. If you're on Facebook, let me go to Facebook right now and put the link in the comments on Facebook. Give me 1 second to do that. But welcome. Come on into the chat. Say what's up. And let's get ready to connect here. I always forget how to do this on Facebook. Let me see. All right, cool. Facebook. Let me go to Facebook. So make sure you like and subscribe in the meantime. That helps the algorithm know, hey, this is important. People like this kind of thing. They want to see more of this, and they'll show it to folks. But welcome. Come on into the chat. Let me pin it. I always forgot to pin the comment. All right, so there you have it. It's pinned in the chat in Facebook. Shout out. I see Smith and Smith on Facebook. I see George and Christopher Hayes. What's up to you guys? I also need to shout out to some folks too. If you are a Patreon supporter, what up? Thank you for standing with Ichabod. If your name is on the screen, your name is in my heart. If you're not a Patreon supporter, the link will be in the description of this video if it's not there already, depending on when you're watching this. and it will be posted in the comment in the chat throughout. All right, I think all the business is out the way. So, what do I mean when I say your God chose violence as opposed to being known? I'm using violence figuratively, even though I could talk about the literal violence of not Norway. Norway is a peaceful cloud. Norway's not going to genocide anybody or anything. And if there is any justice to be meted out, Norway's not like, no, I don't see anything. I don't want any. Not Norway is leaving it up to us. Norway trusts us to use our intuition to have empathy, to know what it is that we like and know that, wait, if I wouldn't like X, then I shouldn't do X to someone else. Sort of a variation of the golden rule, which you find in just about every religion, has some variation of, hey, if something is objectionable to you, don't do this to someone else. That's kind of called the negative golden rule. Then you have the positive one, which is do unto others as you would have them do unto you, as Jesus said. But every religion has something like that. And always like, yeah, that's how it works. That's how your morality works. That's how justice works, and work that out. So yeah, and always like, yo, I'm not going to. But as far as you go, I want to know what your God is saying, what your God is doing. Can you get your God to show up on the stream today? And maybe if he can't show up visibly, you could still call in and tell us why you think your God wants to be known and why you think your God can be known. And if you could demonstrate that in any way, maybe you could just give us some steps like, hey, maybe he's not going to show up here now, but when you get done with the stream, like I had people on my Facebook page tell me, hey, will you just go and pray and ask God to da 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 da? And I mean, I'm not so closed off that I won't do that. I've done that several times as a result of people asking me to do that. I would pray the prayer, typically late at night when I'm laying in bed, thinking back over the day. And oh yeah, so-and-so said I should pray and ask God, and I would pray the prayer. And I think I told you guys last week, I was praying the prayer a week ago. And as I was praying it, I was like literally shaking my head because I just don't believe this is real. And I was like, I caught myself. I was praying and I was saying something to the effect of like, Lord God, if you're real, like just show up and show yourself to me. And then I said, damn, why are you shaking your head? Your body language is saying you don't really believe this. So I challenged myself to stop shaking my head and to just try to have a childlike faith and just what if God's gonna, and try to believe. And I prayed the prayer as sincerely as I could. And then I went to sleep. And I woke up and I forgot about it. Because even when I was praying, I was like, maybe I'll have some sort of vision or dream or something while I'm sleeping. And then I have to do the hard work of trying to figure out, was it just my subconscious dreaming or was the dream God? And I didn't know how I was going to deal with that if I had like a God kind of dream. But I still prayed it, but I didn't have any kind of dreams. Woke up the next day, went on with my life. And it wasn't until I got back on Facebook that Matt Dillahunty responded to the person who asked me to pray. I was like, oh yeah, I did it. I did the prayer and nothing happened. So I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to be as sincere as I can be and asking God to show up and asking, your God to do. He doesn't do anything without like, unless I get involved and start using my imagination, like, ooh, maybe when that happened, that was God, or maybe when that coincidence, unless I get involved and start doing the things to connect the dots, your God doesn't do anything. And I don't think he wants to be known. I think your God chose violence. I mean that figuratively. And here's what I mean. The God of the Bible, and just about every God that you can think of, instead of choosing to be known, what the gods chose was they chose to be believed. That's a little different. Maybe your God is real, and instead of being known, the God said, no, that's too easy, or that's too something. I don't know what it was, too something for the gods. And they said, but you know what would be fire? If instead of knowing me, if they believed me. So I'm going to rig it up so that they have to just believe me and they can't actually know. And I'll send words down through prophets and I'll give them experiences that they'll have to question because it could be interpreted some other way, but maybe it was me. They just got to believe that it was me. And then the Bible goes as far as to say in the book of Hebrews, without faith, it's impossible to please God, because whoever's going to come to God must first believe that he is, which is a weird litmus test when you think about it. If you're going to come to this God, you must first believe that the God doesn't have to demonstrate itself first. You've got to believe it's there first, which is kind of a trick way to get you to do all the work. Because if you believe the God is there first, then that means you'll do whatever on the back end to confirm your bias. If I believe it, if I coax myself into believing he's there first, then that means any coincidence, any lucky chance or good or bad things that happen, I'm going to interpret those things as if, oh, that was my God doing X, Y, or Z. Why? Because I believe he's there first. But what if it was the reverse? What if God had to demonstrate itself first and then? Because if God has to demonstrate itself first, now it's not a matter of believing. Now it's a matter of, oh, I can now know this God in the ways that I know everything else that I know. How do I know anything that I know? I know it because I either have encountered it with my five senses and my rational mind has put two and two together, or I intuit it because I've seen enough about the world that I could say, based on the nth amount of experiences I've had with this, that, or the third, I can intuit that this is what's going to happen next. That's all rationality is. It's almost like large language models, right? With AI. All logic and rationality is can I predict what should come next given these range of things? If I look at these givens, what should come next? Can I predict that? That's rationality. That's logic. Well, that's how I know anything that I know. I put two and two together from my empiricism, my five senses, what I can see, hear, touch, taste, or smell. My rational mind goes to work and says, based on those things, what can I predict will be next? And there's some instances where I don't know. It could be the wind making this rattle, my windows rattle, or it could be a burglar. So I have to rationally try to figure out, or maybe I need to gather more information. Maybe I need to go to the window and pull back the curtain. Who's that peeking through my window? Maybe there's something I can do to gain as much information as I can gather to make the best prediction about what comes next. Now, maybe I can't call that knowing, but I can call that some sort of prescience, some sort of, I think I'm on the right track by thinking that X, Y, or Z should happen next. But that's how we know things. Other than that, we're left to faith. I don't have any reason to think this should come next, but this book told me that I should wait for this. I should in some kind of way be hoping for these things. And then that's where God comes in. That's faith. Your God does not want to be known. Your God wants to be believed. And I think that is a piss poor way for a God to deal with a creation, a world, human beings, even animals, right? Think about how many animals live their lives in fear, live their lives in desperation, live their lives just worrying and wondering, where's my next meal going to come from? Or my children going to be eaten by a predator? And like, we're not much different. But what we have when it comes to a God is we have the opportunity to hear claims and try to decide based on what we know about the world and how they make us feel inside, am I going to believe this claim or that claim? And some kind of way, the God of the Bible says, without faith, it's impossible to please him, because whoever's going to come to him must first believe he's there. Your God doesn't want to be known. Your God wants to be believed. And I think to hold anybody accountable for not believing is a dick move. And I think the God of the Bible, for a number of reasons, and this is probably chief among them, is a dick. The one who's going to sit back and just challenge you to believe when he could easily be known. He could present himself to you in the same way that every other fact about reality is presented to you. But no, you got to believe him, not know him. Anybody want to go to bat for your God and try to explain to us why your God can be known, how your God can be known, and that he wants to be known? This is your chance to call in. The link to call in is in the chat. I will post it again. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, just scroll up in the comments. I don't even know if there's more than one comment there, but scroll up, click the link. If you're on Instagram, you can go to my bio and click the link there in the bio. I do have some sad news that I'd like to share. And it won't be really sad for many of you because you all don't know this person, but you've seen him on Ichabod. And I'll be honest, I didn't really know him either. He was on Ichabod about a month ago, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, where we did a 2-on-2, maybe a 2-on-3 debate where it was me, Joshua, Triple A the Humanist is his AKA, me and Triple A the Humanist versus 2 or 2.5 Christians. I say 2.5 because the host was a guy named Ronald Smith, DJ Ronnie Ron. And he didn't really get too much in it. He sort of played the role of facilitator. This is DJ Ronnie Ron right here in the middle. You see the arrow pointing to him. He was the host where he kind of got us together. And even when we got on, he sort of was lauding me with just, sort of just accolades and praise, like, yo, Fanatic, when you were a Christian rapper, I used to play your music all the time. And, you did a lot for my faith, this, that, and the third. It's an honor to be talking to you, all that. And he didn't say much in this conversation. He kind of just facilitated it. But one thing I can say about him is it was clear he had a great, great heart. We did not agree, but and to be honest, he was probably one of the few Christians who was sort of like, no, you got a point on this, and you got a point on that. And I'm confused. Like, well, if I got a point on this, that, and the third, like, why you still believe what you believe? But then just yesterday, I saw, well, in fact, this morning, I saw online that he passed away. And folks on Facebook are, condolences and just talking about how dope he was. He was a Christian hip hop DJ. He loves, he was a skater, I think roller skater. It just seemed like I didn't know him, but just from the short time and he also commented on a few of my Facebook posts recently. And he just put up a video yesterday where he was talking about the thing that happened, I think, in Atlanta with Trick Daddy. And I mean, just a vibrant life, just giving his commentary and, just a cool dude. And I don't know what happened. His last post was yesterday. And then today, everybody's saying, yo, he's gone. So my condolences to his family, to everybody that knows him. Even as I was, just scrolling through his Facebook page, I'm like, man, he was here, y'all. He was here. Your brother was here. And I'll tell you what, I want to be as honest with y'all as possible, because I think this is a human experience that we all are having and going to have and all that. When I learned that he passed, this was just a few hours ago when I learned that he passed, I had a moment where I said, dag, where is he now? Like, he was just here. And I wanted to hope for him. Like, there was a part of me that really wanted to hope, like, maybe he's with his God now. And I spent the weekend just blasting the shit out of the resurrection. Like, all the claims on my Facebook page, just post after post, just because so much was coming up. I felt somebody had to speak back to all of the He is Risen posts. So they're like, Brady, why you speak about Jesus so much? I'm like, my timeline is filled with y'all popping shit about Jesus. So I got to talk back to y'all. This is not just me on the offensive. This is defense. I'm talking back. And some of the comments, like, I'm not dumb. Some of the posts that I see are sort of like, sort of tongue in cheek. It's sort of like, you sneak dissing me. I know the people who you're talking about me in your posts. So don't think I'm not going to say anything. So the whole weekend, I'm like, I'm responding. Most of them are not by name. A few of them are by name, but I'm responding to all the claims on my timeline about the resurrection. But I'm not going to lie to you. when I learned that DJ Ronnie Brown, when he passed, I said, Dag, what if right now he's with his Jesus? Because I've only had positive interactions with him. I did not know him when I was a Christian rapper, but the very short interactions I had with him, I want the best for him in life, and I want the best for him in death. And it pained me to think, Dag, this cool dude, like, I don't want to say he's not anymore. I just want to say he's not here anymore. And so I was like, man, the only hope I could get is, man, maybe he's with his Jesus. But then reality crashing upon me, like, man, that's. I mean, I got no reason to think that other than I just want it to be the case. It was sad. It was sad as hell. I just was like, man. And so all I could do was like, man, well, his memory, like, may his memory be a blessing to everybody. You know, I just like, what can you do? Just remember him and talk about him and tell good stories. I wish I had more than the stories of just when he was on this podcast. But anyway, I just say all that to say, just before I jumped on here, I just was reminded of this life, y'all. This is it. Like, you got to make the most of this life. We don't have, as far as I'm concerned, and you can call in if you disagree, we don't have any reason to think, oh, it's okay, I didn't do X, Y, Z, because in the next life, this is it. What are you waiting for? Are you waiting to live? This is it. What are you going to do with it? Make the most of it. You don't know. I could be gone. This could be my last podcast. I'm trying to make the most of my life. I'm trying to help as many people as I possibly can. What are you going to do? But yeah, we do have a caller, a friend of the channel. Please welcome back to Ichabod, Mr. Biscuit. What's going on, man?
What up, family? How are you?
I'm chilling, man. I'm chilling. Great to see you.
Good. Yeah, I wanted to ask, when you were just saying make the most of it. This is it, right? Like, as an atheist, I just wanted to get your opinion on what it means to make the most of it. Like, why is, like, from an atheist worldview, why is me, let's say, going out and, you know, getting a bunch of money for charity and stuff like that, why would that be better than me, you know, going to the strip club and spinning a bunch of bands and getting drunk and, you know,
when I say make the most of it, I'm not trying to put any, as long as you're not hurting anyone, I'm not trying to put any restrictions on what most means. Most is whatever most means to you. So if you go.
So that means most doesn't mean anything. If it means everything, it doesn't really mean anything. It loses.
It doesn't mean everything. Like I said, if you're hurting people, I don't mean that at all.
But why not?
That's not, well, because making the most embedded in that for me is, so you've got, as far as we know, you are a bundle of cells and nerve endings and neurons firing and all that. Now you could be hurting people and maybe you get some kind of pleasure out of that. But I think because of the way that, well, temporary, all pleasure is temporary, but you know what I mean? So, but even in that, you do have, and I'm still looking into all these things so to try to understand what I even mean when I say some of this stuff, but you do have the ability to mirror. Like, you have these neurons that fire that cause you to see what's in the world and have that reflected back to you. And you can even do that not just with what you're seeing, but with what people are feeling, your empathy. And so if you see pain in other people and nothing inside of you says, damn, I feel the pain that I'm causing, or I feel the pain that person, something's not, I would venture to say that you're not something is not firing right in you, because you have the ability to feel what other people are feeling. That's like when somebody gets kicked in the nuts and a dude is like, "Ooh," like that wasn't your nuts, but you felt it, right? You've got the ability to not intuit, but to empathetically feel what other people are feeling.
But I mean, as an atheist, because I'm pretending that I'm an atheist, right? As an atheist, if I believe that your dispositions or your mode of interpreting reality is a result of nature and nurture and your brain cells and your past experiences, traumas, all that stuff, why should I be surprised if some of us lack empathy and want to enslave other people? Why wouldn't that just be like, yeah, of course, and
Well,
that's just the
well,
universe
no,
being
I
the
don't know
universe?
that. I don't know that we should be surprised. Other than, like I
But why
said,
why would you say we shouldn't do that, given that that's just the way some people's makeup? You know, there's no God, there's no morality objectively. Why not?
um, because there is subjective morality, and subjective morality is if I create a world where those kinds of things can happen to other people, then there's no reason why they can't happen to me. So it's not even in my best interest to create a world where people are harming people, and that's acceptable. That's why I was talking about, because we have all of the nerve endings and the cells and the neurons that we have, it gives us the ability to experience pleasure. And because pleasure is possible and so is pain, it behooves us to rig the kind of world where instead of pain, pleasure is our experience. Because whatever I put out there, and I'm not talking about some kind of karmic sense, like what you do to others comes back to you. I just mean if you create the kind of world where pain is more possible or more probable, then you're making the world worse for yourself. So when I say make the most of it, I mean make the world the most in terms of the pleasure that we can experience. And now pleasure for some person might be I gave to charity. Some pleasure for somebody else could be I went to the strip club.
Hmm.
It could be the same person that gets pleasure from both. But either way, you're making the most unless you begin to create the kind of world where pain becomes more probable for you. Now you're not making the most. Now you're making it worse for not just others, yourself. So there's a very, I don't want to say selfish, but self-interest drive in making the world better, making the world as best as it possibly could be, not just for others, but because whatever you put out there into the world, you create the possibility that you'll have to live with that as well.
So long as you are insufficiently rich and powerful, I guess we'll say that, because like if I'm Genghis Khan, right, of the
Mm-hmm.
Mongol army, right, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
taking over countries in weeks, right, and the Mongol hordes are just behind me, and we're raping and pillaging and plundering, right? um it doesn't occur to me that from that standpoint, if we imagine there is no God, it's all about feeding, fighting, fleeing, and reproducing, which are the evolutionary chores. It doesn't seem to me that
Hold on, wait. If you're pretending to be the atheist right now, you got to say fucking.
feeding, fighting, feeding, fucking. Right, that's the four
Okay, there
F's.
you go. You're pretending to be an atheist. I got to hold you to it.
See, but Patricia Churchland, right? Who I
Mm-hmm.
think came up with those. He says feeding, fighting, fleeing, reproducing, right? So she's trying to
Mm-hmm.
get you to say fucking.
Yeah.
But
But no, but to your point though, even if you're Genghis Khan, whoever you are, it still does not behoove you to create that kind of world, because all you're doing is creating people who want revenge, creating people who, oh, you toppled us, you took out. Well, now we're gonna maybe we have to bide our time, but we're going to grow in power, we're going to grow in numbers, and we're going to dethrone you. Some other person. Like you could think, oh, um it's right for me, but not for thee. I can do these things, but you can't. But if that's the kind of world that you create, you're always like, it's almost like the guilty flee when no one chases. If
yeah,
you create the kind of world where this is what's going on, you're never going to have peace. You're never going to be able to sleep, because
but
now you're wondering,
Genghis Khan didn't
right?
necessarily want peace. What kept the Mongols so vicious is their preparedness for revenge. They're like, yeah, we're going to rape the women, we're going to kill the children, we're going to subsume your army, so your
Mhm.
men will now be our fighting force, and they might be first on the line to attack the next country. So the majority of your men are going to end up being cannon fodder. I mean, we're talking about brutality there. And so when it comes to revenge and frustration and hatred, Genghis Khan was all for that. He's like, I'm going to subsume all of you with my might. And if I die, let me die as a soldier, you know? And so there are certain people who have that warrior ethic. I think Friedrich Nietzsche wrote a book called The Gay Science, which, translated from German, it's actually like the wonderful philosophy, or, the
Mhm.
wonderful wisdom. And, in it, he's talking about, I don't know, it might have been the genealogy of morals, same author, Friedrich Nietzsche. But he's talking about the warrior ethic. Whereas to be good, you have to be useful, like a good spear, right? A good spear
Mhm.
is a spear which can accomplish its aims when it's thrown, right? And so Nietzsche would say, look, what if I'm the type of person where goodness is my ability to make my presence felt in the world? I just don't see atheism having a good argument for suggesting that that is not making the most out of your life.
Well, you might be right about that, but atheism doesn't claim to do that. Atheism is not a worldview. Atheism is only a statement about a particular claim,
That's
and
true.
the claim is that there are gods. Humanism, on the other hand, does have that. So I wouldn't say atheism is responsible for giving anybody an idea of goodness
Yeah.
or what it means to make the most. I don't get that from my atheism. I get that from my humanism.
No, I think that's a great argument. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that it's not atheism that informs that. It's the humanism which comes, which is attached to the atheism. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff, man. Oh, and I owe you an apology too, because last time you were on, I said that when you were on Justin's show on Deconstruction Zone, that you said you were a theist. It wasn't that you said you were no, I said that you said you were atheist, and it wasn't that. It was that you said that you were a, what did you say? Because I tried to clear it up in the comments of the last video that
I'm an
you were on.
idealist.
I forget what it was. There was something that you said to Justin that I think it was different than what you said here. Oh, no. I think it was you said that you were a general theist, not a Christian theist. That's what it was when you were on with Justin.
I'm a Christian mystic.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm a Christian in the mystic tradition, which is kind of the tradition of, like, Meister Eckhart, those guys.
Got you. What's going on with you these days? And just in case anybody else is watching, I do want more people to call in to talk about the prompt. But what do you think about the prompt? The prompt is God does not want to be known. And I explained it by saying, I think from the depictions of God that we get from the religions of the world, it appears to me that God doesn't want to be known. God wants to be believed. Would you agree, disagree with that? How would you respond to that claim?
I don't believe that God has any desires, because if God had a desire,
that's right. I forgot. Yeah.
God is completely fulfilled. So God is the greatest conceivable being. So if God had a desire, I could conceive of a greater being, namely a fulfilled being. So I don't believe that God has any desires, and I use the Bible for that too. And as a matter of fact, the scripture that you can use as evidence that God doesn't want to be, God doesn't want to necessarily be known more than God is already known. So what can be known about God is already plain to mankind. So whether you want to metacognize God, meaning know that you know, or think about your knowledge, sometimes that gets us into bad territory where we've conceptualized an idol and we're calling that idol God. So I brought up Meister Eckhart before, and Meister Eckhart prayed to relinquish the knowledge of God, which is a strange thing for a Christian to pray. Why would a Christian pray to get rid of the knowledge of God? And the reason he prayed this prayer is because he's like, whenever I think about God, whenever I think I understand God, it's an idol that I've created in my mind that I'm worshiping. So instead of believing in that idol, I want to get rid of that thought and just live in the embodied experience, participatory knowing of God.
So in that sense, this kind of gives me a chance to use the same thing you used against me a minute ago. Is there anything that can be experienced that's not God?
Can there be anything?
Because how, if you have to get rid of the knowledge of God, even the idea of God, because you've created an idol, just been doing that, and then instead of thinking about God or contemplating or believing or knowing, you experience God. The question could become, well, how do you know when you're experiencing God and not God? But you can't answer that if God doesn't want to be known. So that just means whatever you experience, then you have to say, then that must be God. If I can't know that I'm experiencing God, I just have to experience it.
No. I'm not saying you can't know or you can't talk about it.
Okay. How can you know that you're experiencing God?
Oh, you can know that you're experiencing God because you don't see yourself as a separate subject in a room or world full of objects. So the trick that's beset upon us in the book of Genesis in the fall, right, is that man becomes self-conscious and sees him and herself as a separate thing in the world. Whereas before, when Adam saw his wife, he saw an extension of himself. He's like, this is now flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood, bone of my bone, right? They walked with God throughout the garden. There was no separation between them as an agent and the world as an arena. But when the fall happened, when we became self-conscious, what humans do when we become self-conscious is we exchange the present for the past and the future. Now it's all about my motivated expectations in the future and how you wronged me in the past and how I'm going to get revenge. That makes me separate from you. Now I'm living in a state of ignorance where I think that you have a separate, agenda over there and it's against my agenda over here. And that ignorance, the belief in that separation, causes suffering, right? So God is already known, but sometimes we forget, right?
So when the scripture says without faith, it's impossible to please God, that does mean God can be pleased and displeased, right?
That's an anthropomorphization. And so I think when we talk about God, it's a good idea sometimes to anthropomorphize, as long as you don't take the anthropomorphizations literally, because the biblical writers were not correspondence theorists. They were storytellers.
Right. But I mean, we always flirt with going around the track for like the 10th time, but I'm going to ask this to see if I can ask it a different way. If that's the case, if it's all anthropomorphism or anthropopathism, putting human experience onto the divine, what is the metaphor? What is the figurative language actually like? What's the concrete behind the figurative language? If God can't really be pleased or displeased, that's just language to help us kind of attain to what really is going on.
Sure. So
what is going on.
So you're asking what tool can we get that's trying to get us to have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about tool, but just what's the reality?
What's the reality behind
language?
The metaphor? Okay. Yeah. When you're going fishing and you bring that fish out of the water and into your boat, right? The ocean hasn't punished the fish, right? The fish is just out of an area where he belongs, right? And so sometimes
the hook is punishing the fish, though, right?
I don't know if the hook is punishing the fish. You think the hook has an ability? And the thing is, sometimes with language, that's a decent question. But what I think is the way that's anthropomorphized, right? The universe is something which chooses. And that is worldview transcendent. Both Christians and atheists know that. Atheists will take a Darwinian approach and say, look, there are decisions that you can make that are going to get you killed. And then there are decisions that you can make and ways of being that you can inhabit or modes of interpreting reality, which can cause flourishing, right? And so the biblical writers, instead of saying there are ways of being which lead to death, which they actually do say, they say this angers the heart of God. Right. And so punishment is coming. Judgment is coming. That's the nature of the anthropomorphization. Because it's easier to get us to remember a story than it is to remember a list of rules.
So they're just talking about, it almost sounds like you're saying what they're doing is they're using human language and experience as metaphors for basically the laws of physics, like laws of attraction and laws of repelling and those kind of things.
No, physics is what the universe does. Ethics is what the universe should do. So there's a big difference there. They're talking about normativity. They're talking about what ought to be done. And physics is talking about what is done. So there's a difference.
So if you create a chemical compound by, putting 2 hydrogen atoms together with, 3 atoms of nitrous, whatever. If you do that, is there any ethical consideration? Like, do the molecules themselves, do the protons, do any of them have a desire, or is there a should, or is it just a could there going on there? Like, you could do that.
I don't believe that protons and neutrons and subatomic particles have desires.
But God does have a desire that certain chemicals should be able to combine and other chemicals shouldn't, or like sometimes there's an explosive reaction. Is that an ethical stance, or is that just something that nature does?
It's just it's something that nature does. And I'm a naturalist. I believe the universe is what it is because the universe does what it does because it is what it is.
So there's no God behind it wanting ethically these things should combine, those things shouldn't combine.
Ethics is what ought to be done, and God doesn't have.
That's what I'm saying. So God doesn't have ought.
No, there is no ought that God is obeying. God's nature is God does things as an extension of his nature. I don't think God does things because he's appealing to some law which existed before him, or that, he's bound by some, system of rules. God's behavior is what human beings call good and evil, how far and how near we are to the heart of God. And it's the reason I think, and we've been down this road before, it's the reason I say, when we do associative behaviors like sharing and compassion, we call those things good because God is one. And when we share and we're compassionate, we're treating two or more as if they are one. And so it's a direct response to the heart and the being of God. And whereas
God, I know the answer, but I'm trying to see how your worldview maps onto this. Does God want us to be good like God is good, or one like God is one?
No, God's ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So when I say good, I'm using a comparative term. God is the superlative that makes those comparative terms make sense. Even Friedrich Nietzsche acknowledges that in the first 2 pages of The Will to Power, that the words like good and evil only make sense because of Christianity. Because without the presence of God, there would be no superlative to make sense of those relative terms. It's the reason when I came on, I was like, what do you mean by living our best life? What's the superlative by which best is measured? Because if there's no superlative,
I don't think I said live our best life. I said make the most of it.
Right, make the most. Most is a comparative term. Most as opposed to least. And so if I look at someone and I'm saying you're making the most of your life, right? There has to be some superlative life that I'm using that comparative term, right? Or else the comparative doesn't make any sense.
Well, I know this is probably not popular to do. I would strongly disagree with Nietzsche if that is his full point, that without God, the ideas of good and bad or good and evil don't make sense. I would completely disagree with that. I think that the basis for good and evil is not without. I think it's much more local. It's our experience that determines what's good or bad. And I think we actually anthropomorphize that. I think we're taking our experience and we're outsourcing it because we don't like having to stand behind, I think this is good, I think this is bad. We don't like being that authority. And so we outsource it to something that we can say is higher than us. Oh, this comes from God, as opposed to the thing that you're saying, where God is the thing and we're sort of just making metaphors for what God actually is. I think it's the reverse. I think we're the thing.
But you believe in a higher power, right?
I don't think I believe in a higher power. I think I'm open to the idea of there being higher orders of, I don't even know if I could say higher, just because I don't know what the nature of reality is. And I'm not going to try to opine on it. I think it's foolish to try to opine on the nature of reality.
So say you wanted to be a bodybuilder, right? And you would begin sacrificing to the higher power that is the bodybuilder. You would begin waking up like a bodybuilder at 6 a.m. You'd start eating more eggs like a bodybuilder. You would start.
I don't know how that's sacrificing to a higher power.
Because the higher power is the goal state. Like so even if the higher
it's not a power though. It's a desire of mine to attain to a certain status. Not a power.
Right, but if
it can't do anything.
Are you saying that you could become a bodybuilder without having the bodybuilder already present in your mind and begin sacrificing to that?
But having it in my mind is not a power. Power is the potential, right? Like power is having potential. Ideas don't have potential. I have the potential to bring the idea to being. The idea itself doesn't have the power.
Well, I mean, power is exacting potential out, right? So you do have the potential right now, potency, power. You have the potential to become a bodybuilder if you want to. And if you did want to do that, you would have to imagine the bodybuilder in your mind and you would have to obey his schedule. You would have to get up like a bodybuilder gets up in the morning to start working out. You'd have to stop eating the things that you might eat, like fast food. You might have to skip that, get some eggs, get some protein. You start to do the things in keeping with that higher power, right? Because
the term higher power is, I think, a misnomer for what you're actually saying. I don't think that term fits what you're saying.
So how is the being, which is at the end of the goal state, not a higher being than the one who's in the problem space right now?
Because one is in the ideal, one is in the real. The bodybuilder in my mind has no power. If I become him, I'm as powerful as I imagine myself being.
I think that
until I become that, I'm not that.
I feel like that makes the same mistake of assuming that the tree is not in the seed, right? The everything necessary for the tree is present in the seed. You just have to develop it and pull out the potential which is already there. So you know that you could potentially be a bodybuilder, you could be an astronaut, you could even be the president of the United States. Like, all you would have to do is make the right sacrifices to whatever higher being you want to accomplish. The only reason I believe, I mean, not the only reason, there's tons of reasons I believe in God, but one of the reasons, in addition to the 1,000 others that I believe in God, is because if I begin sacrificing to a higher being, I want there to be a highest being, such that if I'm cut off on my journey toward reaching that I'm not completely, traumatized by the fact. It was like, let's say I wanted to be an NBA player and I start doing a whole bunch of stuff. I start sacrificing in order to reach that goal. And then let's say I break my leg, right? If my highest power, if my highest ideal was the NBA, now I'm completely traumatized by the elimination of that hyper prior. So I want the highest being. I want to imagine the highest possible being, right? Such that that upward aim is always present from any trajectory that I have in life.
I would be remiss. I'm gonna let you go in a second because I got another call coming in, and I want everybody to
For sure.
hear.
Yeah. Respectfully. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would be remiss if I didn't introduce you to Norway. Would you accept Norway as a higher power?
Norway?
Norway.
I'm not sure what Norway is.
You don't know what Norway is? Norway is my higher power. He's above my head right now. The talking cloud above my head is Norway.
Oh, what up, Norway? I didn't see. I'm rude. I didn't even know you had another guest. Norway, I see you. You look like cotton balls with eyes. Respectfully.
Well, no, he's a talking cloud. That's not really as respectful as you think it is. I don't really appreciate that, but no, but
I don't know how
Norway is. That's the thing. But Norway can be known. I can teach you how to approach him, and he can be. Norway is the cloud that all of our ideas get uploaded into, and so the scriptures come from us. Sort of like I believe with the Bible. I think the Christian scriptures came from a bunch of people. They uploaded it into the cloud back when they didn't think that we'd ever be able to go to the clouds, but now that we can, we don't find the God there. But here's a God that we're going to talk about on this show. He's a higher. Would you say that he fits the idea of a higher power? If all of us were to start a new religion and put all of our highest ideals into Norway, could that be the higher power, just like the bodybuilder in my mind, or is it a different kind of higher power? If we're attributing to Norway all of our highest ideals, aspiration, we even have scriptures for Norway, could he be a higher power?
Yeah,
or not really?
I don't think Yahweh, God, Allah, Nahweh, right? Those are just names. What matters most is what those names are meant to embody. So if Nahweh, if the cloud above your head is just the universal symbol of Nahweh and not Nahweh itself, then you would say, oh yeah, Nahweh is omniscient, omnipresent, just like Yahweh.
He doesn't have the omnis. He doesn't have the omnis. All of his power comes from us. We give him all of it. What he knows, he's not omniscient. He only knows what we tell it. So he's as powerful as we are.
Then I'm going to go in the other direction because I believe in the unactualized actualizer, which would be more powerful than Nahweh if his power comes from us. Because my power doesn't come from me. So if his power
can you
comes
produce
from,
the unactualized actualizer? Can you introduce us to it?
Yeah, I think it's the only, so take for instance, if I'm holding this phone and I put this pin.
That's how I know it's time to go. Because every time the phone comes up. Well, go ahead.
Okay, this is the last thing because I know you got to get to other callers. If the phone on top of the pin and I'm moving it, right? The phone is not responsible for the movement, nor is the phone responsible for the movement, nor is my hand. I can go back to my arm, my shoulder. There has to be an unactualized actualizer to activate the potential in all things, right? Because something can only be activated in terms of their potential by something which is already actual. We talked about
Oh, go ahead. Finish.
Yeah. We talked about coffee, right? My coffee has the ability to go from hot to room temperature. But the only reason it has the potential to go from hot to room temperature is because the temperature in the room is already actual. So we can unlock the potential in a hot cup of coffee to be actually room temperature. So there always has to be an actualizer which is already present for any potential to be unlocked. So I believe in the unactualized actualizer. And if you don't, you have an infinite regress of causes, which makes no natural sense.
Well, I don't. This is as close as I come because you asked me if I believe in a higher power. I don't believe in an unactualized actualizer. I believe in the actualization. Like, so I don't think there's a higher power. I think what we're seeing is power, the potential, the energy in transfer from energy to matter and back and forth. I think that all of reality is that. And I can't say that one part of that is higher than another part. The stuff that was in stars is now in you and me. Are we higher than stars, or stars higher than us? Or are we, as far as we know, and I'm going off of what we can know and demonstrate, from what we can tell, is as far back as you can possibly go, and probably even farther than that, I would wager to say, all we know is potential, energy, potential, transferring to matter, and back and forth and back and forth. And I don't know where that starts or ends. All we know is there's always been actualization. And I don't know anything about an unactualized actualizer. I just know that things have been actualizing.
And the last thing I'll say is if you believe that, you believe in infinite train cars with no train engine. And if you believe that a list of a series of train cars can continue on the track and there's no engine pulling them, then I can't buy that. I don't think that's rational. There has to be an engine, pulling the train. There has to be an unactualized actualize. You can't say this car gets its energy from this car and then this car gets its energy from this car, because if everyone is a borrower, where's the lender, right?
I hear you. Yep, I hear you.
But I appreciate you, man.
Thanks for checking in. Appreciate
yes, sir.
that.
Always a good time, man.
This is a good call. Yep. Okay, I'll give it to you, man.
All right, brother.
All right, peace. That always happens. If I say I have a call waiting and I'm about to get to it, by the time I get off, that call is gone. But you can call back. This is your chance to click in. I'll put the link in the chat again. The link is in the chat. It's also in the top comment on Facebook. And if you're on Instagram, it's in the bio on Instagram. Just click the link there if you want to call in and tell us how your God either can be known or why you think your God wants to be known. I think all the God claims that we've ever heard, they're gods that no, they actually chose to be believed instead of being known. And I think that's a sucker move, because anything can be believed. Anything can be believed. Why should we believe it? And for a God who can be known, a God who could reveal itself in such a way that it can be known, to say, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have it be so mysterious that the only way they can get to me is via belief. I think that's a sucker move. But if you think, no, your God's not a sucker, your God can be known and wants to be known, call in and represent that. I saw a super chat up above. If you got a comment that you would like to have read and make sure I don't miss it, make sure you super chat that. David Divide 777, what's happening? Thank you for the €2. Appreciate that. Just giving a shout out and a heart emoji with the appreciate you, man. Looking forward to chopping it up with you whenever we do get a chance to do that again. Saw another super chat. Wade, what's happening, Wade? In Alaska, chilling. Thanks for the $10. Wade says the Bible clearly shows God has desires, including revenge, obedience, justice, worship, sorrow, regret at making humans. And it was endemic to God, not projected on him, anthropomorphism. Thank you for the comment. Appreciate you there. Let me see, is there any more super chats? Let me see. Oh, and let me apologize too. When I spelled Yahweh the first time, not Yahweh, Nahweh, the first time I spelled it wrong. I spelled it Nahwey, but I was corrected by the cloud itself. It's Naw. I'm sorry, Nahweh, Nahweh. Um, there we go. And what's up, David? I got so many Davids. That's the third David. I'm not complaining. What's up, man? Good to see you. Appreciate you. Looking forward to chopping it up with you. David, remind me, because I was thinking about this. I'm waiting for you to tell me a time, right? Or do I need to go back and check my messages? Because we got a Life After Faith coming up. Waiting for you to tell me a time to record that, if I'm not mistaken, or if it's already in the convo. Just say it's already. You already gave me a time, and I'll go back and check it. I don't remember. Okay, cool. The 12th to the is that in the chat in Messenger, or are you just now saying that? I don't remember. Because I need to know if I need to write this down. Oh, it's in the chat. Okay, got you. So I don't even just in case. 2 to 4, 2 to 4, 2 to 4, 2 to 4. Okay, cool. So I am looking for theist callers. If you believe that your God wants to be known, can be known, tell us how this is possible. Or if you think it's no real mark against your God that we have to use faith to know your God. If you don't think that that's such a big deal, if you think that that's fitting, tell us why you think faith is a good mode to get to know God, when faith can be used to know any God. All gods can be known by faith. This is the book we were just talking about, book of Hebrews, right? It says, by faith, this person did this. By faith, you can do anything by faith. Until you can't. I can know any God by faith. That's not really knowledge, that's belief. So if you think that knowing your God by faith is adequate, sufficient, wise even, kind for God to do, call in and tell us why. And until a theist is ready to pop in, I will take calls from atheists. That may sound confusing. Until a theist is ready to call in, I will take calls from atheists. And we have one calling in now. Welcome back to Ichabod. Wade, what's good, my friend?
Hey, my brother, how's it going today?
Chilling. Still got snow on the ground out there?
It's starting to melt. We
okay.
we broke a record. We had like 205 inches of snow for the entire winter.
Yeah. So I think I asked you this before, but I'm trying to get my travel plans together. If I came during you all's summer, would I still be able to see the Northern Lights?
Yeah, you did ask. Because of the way our sunrise and sunset work in the summertime, like above the Arctic Circle, the sun never sets. It dips and then it comes right back up. So it's really light out. Even at midnight, it's kind of.
So you don't really get to see it as well.
No, not really. Not really.
So I've got to freeze my balls off just to see the nights, huh?
Yeah. Hello, welcome to my world. Yeah.
Oh, man. What's going on with you now?
Not much. I'm just popping in here because this is, I think, a very interesting conversation and just so multifaceted that it's hard to pin it all down. And I love the whole idea of whether I should have an atheist or an atheist. That was some funny stuff right there, bro.
I used to work with words back in the day.
Yeah, you're good at it. And I'm not an atheist, I'm a non-theist.
Okay. Explain the difference.
The idea of atheism tends to lean toward the idea that I don't believe in the Christian God or the Jewish God. But a non-theist doesn't believe in any of the other proposed deities that humans have come up with to explain the universe and nature and storm gods and war gods and all that kind of stuff. It's somebody, and I forget who said this, said that Christians believe in one God, but none of the other gods, but atheists just go one God further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I think it
Christians,
was what's his name? He said, I just believe in one God less than you. Hitchens, I think I heard say that.
yeah, Christopher Hitchens, yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't know if that was original to him or
Hmm.
where it might have come from. I'm sure that Chat GPT could give us all the details.
I like the idea of non-theists. You know why? One, because it gets away from the stigma of atheism, but it
Exactly.
almost sounds like a more, dare I say, scientific statement. Like, because the question is, even like Mr. Biscuit asked, do I believe in a higher power? And he talks about, you can't have this infinite line of trains going back and back and back. So the question is, okay, so what is the thing that has always existed? And I think non-theist is sort of is a way to answer the question is you're saying the same thing as what atheism means, but it's basically like I often say when I talk about me being an atheist, I say I don't think God is the right answer to the question of what's the nature of reality or why are we here. And
Mm-hmm.
so it non-theist to me just sounds more clinical, like we're trying to answer a question, and I don't think that's the answer. Non-theist, as opposed to atheist, which sounds almost like an attack on theism.
Right, right, and that's the way it's often taken.
Hmm.
You see that in a lot of modern scholarship that's really doing a lot to sort of get us some idea of the cultural milieu in which Judaism, Christianity came into existence, and Christians are seeing that as an attack on religion and this whole war on Christmas idea. When in reality, what non-Christians are saying is that, hey, we also have our own winter festivals. Jesus isn't
Hmm.
necessarily the reason for the season, and they see that as
Yeah.
an attack. They see that as an
Hmm.
affront. So
I'm sorry. I got to go to Instagram because it just stopped working after an hour. It shuts off. Hold on. Give me one
yeah,
second.
yeah, totally.
Um, Sorry, y'all. Let me see. Call in. What was the title? Oh, God doesn't want to be known. Okay.
Mhm.
Audience is public. I just got to get the stream key. After hour, I do this, and then we're probably getting close to the time where my mic is going to bug out too. I don't know why. There are these like an hour in, an hour, 15 minutes in. I always have to go through these things.
Oh, interesting.
Stream key. All right, and should be good to go now. We should be back on Instagram. All right, my
Yeah,
fault.
yeah, it
If
looks
you're a
like it.
theist out there and you want to represent your God, this is a chance to call in. Check the link in the bio on Instagram. Check the top comment on Facebook. And if you're here on, what is this? YouTube, definitely look in the chat or look at the top comment. I'm sorry, no, what is it? It's in the chat. It's in the chat. I'm sorry. Wait, go ahead. You were saying.
No, there were a couple of things that your last guest said that I wanted to sort of modify a little bit, and one of
Mm-hmm.
those was his statement that the virtues and values that we hold in society, we project, we anthropomorphize onto God. And I did a super chat that said that that's probably true, but the Bible doesn't represent it that way. The Bible actually represents that God has specific endemic desires and
Mm-hmm.
wishes, things like vengeance and justice and worship, adoration, obedience. The Bible doesn't present that as something that we project on Him, which we do, but it's endemic to the God itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's represented as in actuality, some scholars like Dr. Stavrokopoulou, she wrote a book called God and Anatomy, where she clearly shows that the ancient Hebrews believed that God had body parts, right?
Hmm.
Which fits with some of the statuary that you find in the temple. They have these little statues of the gods, these
Mm-hmm.
They had graven images, and that's why you don't make graven images.
Right. When
You
they
know,
finally got away from all that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But before that, God had a body.
Hmm. Yeah.
So the idea that we project those things onto God doesn't fit with what the Bible says. It does say that God has certain desires. He lied to people. He made people lie. I mean, these are endemic to the construct of the deity itself, because those are traits that we would naturally do, right?
Yeah.
You and I would naturally tell a story or get angry or take vengeance. And
You know what would be a good question I would think to ask to someone like Mr. Biscuit, because he's not the only person. I had somebody else who called and said God doesn't have desires either. But I think probably the most fundamental question, like think about the 10 commandments, right? The top two.
Mhm.
You shall have no other gods before me,
Right.
and don't worship graven images. But the question I think that I would love to hear somebody who's got that view to address is, does God desire worship? I think that's the most fundamental question to any theist.
Mhm.
If you say your God doesn't desire worship, I think you've just shot your entire religion in the foot.
Exactly. Well, I mean, what are we going to do when we die and go to heaven and sit at the feet of God? We're going to forever sing His praises and worship Him, and just wonder at His magnificence. And so, yeah, that's a sign of an egomaniac. There's some serious psychological issues going on, and I hate to be political, but we kind of have a president in office right now who desires loyalty, adoration, praise, etc.
Oh my gosh. Well, hold on, because I mean, the parallels are crazy. It's not
Yeah.
just problematic that a God or a president desires fealty and loyalty and adoration and kissing his ass and all that,
Yep.
but that they could be moved by that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, who was it? Apple that gave Donald Trump the gold plaque, and we got you a gold this, and if you can be moved by that, that says something about how small you are. And if your God can be moved, like Norway cannot be moved. Now, if I turned my ceiling fan on, he probably would sway back and forth, but he can't be moved by worship, right? And just in that alone, Norway is a better God than Yahweh, because Yahweh can be swayed by, you've been obedient, you've been worshiping him, you've sacrificed to him. Now he'll bless you. Now he'll save you. Now that's it's so small-minded and small-hearted because he's got those desires, those passions.
Yeah. And you also see that kind of desire for appeasement in like the god of Pele in Hawaii, to the female goddess Pele. In order to keep the volcano from erupting, they would throw. I think they threw virgin women into the volcano to appease her. As a ritual sacrifice. And the whole idea of the sacrifice of God's first son fits right with the Jewish idea of sacrificing the first lamb, the firstborn. And the reasons for that are there's several layers to this, but first and foremost, a firstborn child is typically the healthiest child, right? Because the mother has never had a child, her body's in good shape, she has a child, that's the pinnacle of her production capabilities. So
you're giving God your best,
your absolute best, and that's a huge sacrifice. That is a huge. You will suffer because of that sacrifice, but it appeases this deity.
It's crazy. Like I know I did a show on this already, but since you're bringing it up, it's worth talking about. When you first see human and child sacrifice in the Bible, yes, it comes along with it, at least in the first instance, it comes along with the ability to buy back or redeem the child. Your firstborn child belongs to me, but give this instead of the child. But you're still given this idea of, you have a culture who's saturated in this idea of, you really should be giving God you really should be killing your kid for God. But God's going to be merciful and allow you not to. Just that idea. Why are you drilling that idea into people's mind that he wants it, but he's going to allow you to buy it back?
Well, I mean, Abraham got that close to sacrificing. Was it Isaac? I think it was. And God
Mhm.
sent an angel and said, "Hey, no, stop! You showed you showed the intent and your willingness
Mhm.
to do this, but I'm going to stop you just shy of actually
Mm.
plunging the knife into him or whatever the case. But yeah, you
Mhm.
were willing to do it.
Yeah.
You know,
That's pleasing to
so
God. It's
yeah,
pleasing. Once again, the God can
obedience.
be pleased by some of this by worship and by some of the sickest sacrifice.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Well,
I've long held the idea that getting back to the topic of God does not want to be known. That
mhm.
had Jesus actually been the Son of God, our technology by then would have advanced to the point that we would have had video cameras.
Mm.
We could thoroughly document the resurrection. We could put a game trail camera outside the tomb, and we'll watch this tomb the stone magically roll away.
No, that wouldn't do. That wouldn't do because I mean we've had video technology for maybe about 100 years,
Yeah,
but within 100 years now we've got AI technology, and now you can't believe anything you see.
yeah,
So Jesus
exactly.
could not have been validated by video. He has to be here, which is why I made the post yesterday, I guess on Easter. Why was it so important for him to ascend so soon after the resurrection? Like, what's your rush?
Hmm.
Because if you're not going to be here, how the hell, heaven, how are we supposed to know that this shit really happened? We can't. We
Hmm.
just have to believe. And for some reason, you think that's a good idea?
Well, it's kind of like it's a convenient thing that he just like he magically disappeared, just like Joseph Smith and the golden plates. Oh, those guys! I can't show those to you because an angel came by, poof, they're gone. It's
Yeah,
kind of the same thing, just
yeah.
different, same thing, different day.
Mm,
There were some other thoughts I had too. Oh, your previous guest, he gets into the issue of infinite regression,
mhm,
and this is a known problem within faith traditions is that they have to stop the infinite regression. Well, if God created man, then who created God?
mm,
And they come to the idea that you have to stop somewhere, but
mm.
that that doesn't explain much about the nature of God. I actually believe in what they call a cyclically redundant universe.
That's sort of what I was talking about. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and there's some physics that prove that out. The laws of entropy, the conservation of energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed is one of the laws of nature, and that the energy of the universe is cyclically redundant. There's enough of it to contract it and to expand it infinitely. What
Mm,
happens when you contract all of the matter is a time stops, right?
mm,
And then when another big bang happens, time begins again, because time
mm,
is a measurement of the movement of objects toward or away from each other. But when
mhm,
all objects come together and stop momentarily, time stops.
mm.
So that's my personal philosophy.
Yeah, well, you know what? You just made me have a crazy thought. I wish I was high right now because I'd probably be able to expand on this more. But you
Well,
said
it's
when
legal in Alaska.
when matter stops moving, time stops. But think about, you look at superhero movies where they freeze time,
Mm-hmm.
but they never just freeze time and show you people to show you time frozen. Everything has to stop moving. That's how you show that time stop. And I was, a while ago on this program, I talked about this. I asked the people who were watching, I said, where is yesterday? And I said, no, think about what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, because yesterday is not just a time, yesterday is because everything is moving in space. And so you might say, oh, if I stay in my house in this room for 24 hours, you might say, Dag, Brady, you stayed in there for 24 hours. You're in the same place you were yesterday. No, I'm not. Because
Mm-hmm.
24 hours ago, the universe was not like everything is moving. The solar system is moving. The
Right.
galaxy is moving. Earth is moving.
Right.
So 24 hours ago, I was not. I may be in the same room, but the room was not in the same place in the universe. And so I asked
Right.
people who were watching, where is yesterday? It's somewhere else.
Mhm.
And then it was so funny because just last night, Neil deGrasse Tyson, he put up this video where he says, if you create a time machine, you have also created a space machine, because you cannot go back in time without going back in space.
In space, right? That's the whole
Crazy
space-time.
idea, but it's the exact space-time continuum. I
That's right.
love thinking about these kinds of things because, like you said, matter, energy, that's what I was saying to Mr. Biscuit. I think there has always been matter and or energy. And like you use some cyclical, there's this bounce, this transfer between states, and we don't know more than that. And saying anything more than that to me is a
Right.
bit foolish. We can suspect and postulate. We can't say more than that.
Right. Right. And for the theist to say that there is more than that would require proof, and not just subjective, but objective proof. It's like whether humans have souls or not, or spirits. I mean, we could get into the semantics of the difference between the two, but you would have to capture some of that and be able to physically examine it. Now, this gets us into sort of the Greek philosophy and Middle Platonism that that God, or what they call the first principle, was beyond space and time. It did not physically interact with space or time or matter. That's also Spinoza's God, which is also the deistic God the forefounders of our country believed in, an impersonal deity who just spun the universe up, threw it out there, and then backed away from it, right? So even the Greeks had this idea of the very separateness of God from physical nature, and that's totally opposite to what the Bible teaches about God loving the world so much that He sent His only begotten Son. So there's that, and it's like, where do you stop with this whole idea?
Yeah. Hey, good stuff, man. We can
Always.
think about this forever. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for tapping in. Appreciate you, man.
Okay, bro. Peace out.
Yep, get with you. And I'll just say this, you see me on here, when Mr. Biscuit asks a question or somebody else, I'm not always going to say everything the way that I want to say it. When you're on camera and you're live, for me, I'm not that good at thinking on my feet all the time. Matter of fact, one of the reasons why I started taking these calls is I want to get better at thinking on my feet and, hearing an idea that I've never heard before, I hadn't thought much about, and having to think on my feet and bring stuff together. I'm much better if you give me 2 or 3 minutes to think my thoughts and type everything out. I'm better that way, but I'm trying to get better at being in the middle of the conversation and being able to pull thoughts from wherever I pull thoughts from, and all that, and resources and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not planning, or I'm not trying to say that me being on here means I got all my shit together and I got all my ducks in a row. I'm a person like you, trying to know what can be known, trying to be logical, what makes sense, what should follow based on the evidence that we have. And I'm trying to work these ideas out while at the same time helping other people, particularly theists, realize, but certain things just don't make sense. And we know that by now. And that's sort of where the God of the Bible and the claims of the Bible come in. But if you think you're God, my mic didn't mess up. Y'all didn't tell me it messed up. I'm gonna do. All right, I just did the mic switch. So if it was going to mess up, maybe it won't. But I'm surprised we got past an hour and 15 minutes and it didn't short out, or at least y'all didn't tell me that it did. So maybe Norway has blessed the mic. Norway has breathed on the mic. Yeah. So thank you. Dog Waffle says Mike didn't mess up on YouTube until you said that. Are you serious? Right when I said it, it messed up. All right, I was giving Nawe too much credit, so maybe I need to chill. That's wild. Oh man. But anybody who wants to add scriptures in for Nawe, go back to the last episode, the one that's called "Can We Create a New Bible?" or something like that. And if you got scriptures for Nawe, drop some scriptures in there. I'm frozen in the weirdest way right now. I'll unfreeze in a second. Okay. I shall win. What's good? Good to see you. Welcome. It's Sage. Good to see you. Nat Harp, seeing some folks dropping in. Appreciate all the feedback. Make sure you like this episode just so it can tell YouTube, prioritize this, bump it up in the algorithm. Drop a comment if you get a chance. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Tag a theist. Go drop a. Here's the link again. If you know a strong believer who says that they don't just believe, they know God, and you think they would be keen to call in and represent how God can be known, not just believed, but known, call in. Or if you're the believer who says, what's wrong with believing? Or you think your believing is as good as knowing, and you want to call and talk about why faith is a good means to know God, I'd love to hear from you as well. The link is in the chat. It's the top comment on Facebook. On Instagram, it's in my bio. I'm going to hang out for a little while. So I know some of you guys, you come and you go, you check back in. That's fine. That's cool with me. I'm going to be here hanging out. Meanwhile, I will drop another shout out to some of my folks, Patreon supporters in the house. I love you guys. If you're not able to support, doesn't mean I love you any less, but I do love the Patreon supporters a little more. So you figure that one out. No, but the folks that show their love, their appreciation, I appreciate your appreciation. And the link to support via Patreon will be in the description of the video. It's not, well, I'm not gonna say it's not there now because you might not be watching live, but will be in the description of the video, and it will show up in the chat as well. I think I saw My Unique Monique in earlier. Let me scroll up. I'm pretty sure I saw her name in there, unless I'm just so used to seeing it that I imagined it. Yep, there she is. Boom. What's up? Good to see you. Theists, Christians, where you at? My real question is, where's your God at? You see our God, Nawe here. Where's Yahweh? Where's Jesus? We just came out of Easter. Why do you think it was that Jesus had to ascend so quickly? Like, why either the authors had to write him out of the play because he was dead and they knew they couldn't bring him back, or he really was here and resurrected, and rather than stick around, he got the hell out of here. Why? Now, I know there's a passage in the Bible where Jesus says, if I don't go, the Holy Spirit can't come to you. But even that, I'm like, why? Like, what's the rule that says that says the Holy Spirit can't come until Jesus dips? Is it like Clark Kent and Superman? Like, because they're the same person, they can't be in the room at the same time? Why couldn't the Holy Spirit come unless Jesus left? That makes no sense. He's at the right hand of God interceding for us. So why does he have to be there interceding for us? Why? He prayed on earth when he was, the Bible says he prayed to the Father on earth. Why can't he pray while he's like, why did he have to leave? He told Thomas, you believe because you see, right? Doubting Thomas. Thomas said, I'm not going to believe until I see him and place my hands in the holes in his wrist and his side. Jesus popped up, was like, oh, you want to see? Oh, you want to see? Here. Then he says to Thomas, you believe because you saw him, because you was able to touch, but blessed are they who have not seen and still believe. Which makes you think Jesus prioritizes credulity over skepticism, which is wild as hell, he's going to bless credulity when anything can be believed, not just the gospel, anything. Why is Jesus prioritizing credulity over skepticism? Right? But then that's John. Then you get to the book of Acts, and Jesus sticks around for 40 days, giving what the Bible says many convincing proofs. You just verbally chastise Thomas like, you only believe because you saw. I'm really going to bless the people who believe without seeing. Then the story gets told that he sticks around for 40 days giving many convincing proofs. So does he not like giving proofs, or is he okay with it? Which is it? You verbally chastise Thomas for needing proofs, then you stick around giving many convincing proofs, then you dip and there's no more convincing proofs. It's just, nah, you got to take their word for it. That should be offensive intellectually. People don't like me using the term intellectually because they think I'm trying to make it about, oh, see, you want God to appeal to your mind instead of your faith. Okay. It's offensive that a God who can be known, if he can be known, is choosing to have people believe rather than just be known, especially when the Bible is replete with he sticks around giving many convincing proofs. He can do it. He did do it. He stopped doing it. But don't worry, blessed are you if you believe without seeing. That just sounds like so much cap to me. That just sounds like so much. Here's what a con artist would say. And forgive me if I'm not going to lower myself down to the level of being conned by people who lived 2,000 years ago. I'm not getting on that train. Maybe you're cool with being on that train. I'm not doing that shit. I did it for 30 years. I'm not doing that no more. Once I realized how evident the con was, I hopped off the train. So anyway, if you're a theist and you'd like to talk about why you think God does want to be known, and here's how God can be known, please, I'm inviting you. And I'm not going to, I don't curse people out. I'm not disrespectful. I'm not trying to embarrass anyone. I have very good conversations with Christians. I have a whole playlist on this channel called Conversations with Christians, and I don't disrespect anyone. And I'm not going to allow anyone to disrespect me, but we will have a great conversation, I hope, about why you think this God can be known and wants to be known. Because I think all the evidence goes in the opposite way. Either God can't be known or doesn't want to be known and prefers credulity over skepticism. He will bless belief. He will not provide the opportunity for knowledge. You disagree? Holla at me. Where you at? I am going to stick around for a little while. Had a great Easter celebration yesterday, even though I wasn't celebrating Easter. My family gets together on 2 occasions. Ever since I was yay big. I mean, my earliest memories, 4 or 5 years old, my mother's side of the family gets together on Thanksgiving and Easter. My grandmother had 6 girls, which means I have a lot of aunts and a lot of cousins. So every year, Thanksgiving and Easter, we all get together, potluck style. Everybody brings a dish that they're famous for. Yesterday was the first time that we decided, you know what? Let's not meet at somebody's home. We went out to a restaurant for our Easter dinner. And, it's interesting because I don't even know what I can say here without offending anybody. Let me just say this. Like I said, I have a lot of cousins, and amongst my cousins, there are a lot of stories. Like, in the streets, in and out of jail, in and out of relationships, giving parents cause to worry. My mother has had one of the more, like, her kids didn't really give a lot of drama. We had our moments. I was bad when I was a little boy. Both my sisters had their wild out. But in terms of adults, my mother's kids, we sort of got it together by the time we became adults, like, stable jobs, or just, not in and out of trouble, whatever. But there's one way in which I think my mother might be sort of like to be pitied amongst her sisters, because as my generation got older, all of my cousins started like coming back to church because we were all raised in church and kind of getting stuff together and whatever. Whereas my mother's kids, my mother had 3 kids. I got 2 sisters. So it's me and my 2 sisters. All 3 of us within the last couple years have come out to the family as atheists. And it's like, it's almost like a stain on the family for my mother to be the one that's got everybody else's kids are all coming back to church. And I was like the leader of the spiritual guard in my family. Like, they were going to hand the baton to me. Brady's the preacher, the Christian rapper, the evangelist, whatever. And now me and both my sisters, all atheists. So sometimes I feel bad for my mom, because it's like amongst her sisters, she's like, yeah, she's got these 3 hellions on her hand. I said all that because we all went out to celebrate yesterday. In our family group chat, it's always a very risky situation, because whenever Christmas or Easter comes around, all the aunts and some of the cousins will start putting stuff in the group chat, like, oh, he is risen, praise Jesus for this, praise God for that, da 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 da. And several times over the last few years, I would see the praise Jesus talk, and I would just give my take on. So this year, my take was something to the effect of, matter of fact, I'll read it. I wasn't trying to cause trouble. I just was like, I can't let this go completely unchallenged. We're a family. If you all have the leeway and the freedom to, clearly, proudly, boldly state what you believe without offending anyone, allow me to chime in. And so, as the praise Jesus was going around in the group chat, I said to the family, I'm gonna read 2 comments. Mine, which I thought was, I hope was tasteful. Then I'm gonna read my older sister. If you think I'm outspoken, my older sister Ty, she's on TikTok, and like, she's like TikTok famous being an outspoken atheist. I'll read her comment. So I said to the family, all the praise Jesus talk, I said, hopefully, tell me if you think this is respectful. I think it was respectful. I said, this makes me think of all the people over the world for centuries and centuries who didn't hear this good news about Good Friday and the resurrection, and those who might have heard it, but because of when and where they were born and raised, the gospel just didn't strike them as true or meaningful, like it does many of us who were presented with, the gospel over and over again. Then I said, just like we might feel when we get presented with the gods of other religions. Yet imagine being held accountable for not believing in Hinduism. Like, you think that's ludicrous. But if you were born in a place and time where that was the dominant religion, it wouldn't be ludicrous to you. But imagine someone who was a Hindu telling you, like, you're going to suffer and you're going to be, lower in the caste system when you come back because you didn't believe in the right gods. As ludicrous as that would be to you, that's how your gospel sounds to someone else. But you're perfectly okay with calling this good news. Let me see if I can find the comment that made me say that, the one before mine. I don't want to read somebody else's comment, but either way, the way they were talking about it was like it was such good news. And I'm like, and so, and I finished, I said, this is not good news to other people. It's good news to you because it strikes you as your kind of religion because you grew up hearing it. It's not good news to the person who it sounds weird to them. So think about that. But then I ended and I said, I understand that this is a heartwarming message for those who believe it, but it actually is bad news for the rest of the world, though. For a variety of reasons, it doesn't strike them as good news. Then I said to them, yet I will try my best to rejoice with those who rejoice. And so, of course, I didn't have any thought like, oh, don't go get together with your family on Easter. I've been doing this since I was 4 years old. Maybe even before then. I just don't remember. But then my sister chimes in, and I'm not trying to say that she shouldn't have said what she said. I love what she said. Hold on, let me see. I'm not going to read her first comment because I think the first comment could be a little inflammatory. I don't think so. Somebody could. But after she made her first comment, the Easter messages just kept pouring in from different people in the family. So she came back, and I love what she wrote. But I didn't even respond to it because I'm like, I don't want to pile on. But here's what she put in the chat. She says, because they keep saying Happy Resurrection Day, happy. So she chimed in. Ty says, Happy Resurrection Day. Then she says, resurrect discernment, resurrect moral courage, resurrect the ability to tell the truth even when it disrupts belonging. Resurrect our capacity to hear stories that make us uncomfortable without rushing to defend the system. Resurrect accountability, not just for others, but for ourselves. Resurrect dignity as the baseline for how we treat people. Resurrect love that is not rooted in control, but in humanity. Resurrect the discipline of evaluating authority before submitting to it. Resurrect boundaries that protect people, not institutions. Resurrect the refusal to call harm God's will. Because if resurrection means anything, it should show up in how people live, not just in what they claim to believe. Yeah. Mic drop. And she wasn't coming at anybody. It was just, like I said, I'm going to try to rejoice with those who rejoice. I think that was her version of trying to rejoice with those who rejoice. If we're celebrating resurrection for her, this is what she wants to resurrect. This is what she wants to bring back to our experience. Because presumably at some point, we were about those kinds of things. Probably when we were younger, before the religion got a hold of us and made us start calling things that don't make sense. Okay, well, I guess that's God's wisdom. Like Mr. Biscuit just said a minute ago, God's wisdom is higher than our wisdom. His ways are higher than our ways. So now we start hearing a bunch of things that are illogical, but because it's in the book that we're told is God's word, I guess we got to call that wisdom now. I guess we got to call that love now. I guess we got to call that mercy now. I guess we got to. Before the religion crept in, we were able to hear things that made us say, I'll read another comment, not from the family group chat. There's a guy who was on this channel, a Christian, who was kind of deconstructing, but back when I first started doing conversations with Christians, I think he was a pastor. I'm not really sure, but Rob Hooper. So he posted on Facebook that he was in church with his son on Easter, and he posted that his son turned to him, his small son turned to him and said, Dad, why do they keep saying Jesus is a lie? And then under that, he put his response to his son. His response was, alive, son. Jesus is alive. So they were in church and his son couldn't, I guess he just thought they were saying Jesus is a lie. No, alive, son, alive. And so I jumped in the comments and I said, wait, let him cook. Shorty was on to something. Like, don't correct him. He might be on to something. But I only share that to say, when you're a child, you sort of have the wherewithal and you're kind of uncouth. You hear things that don't make sense and you're just like, yo, you call BS. But the religion gets in and it makes you stop calling BS and it makes you doubt yourself. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's okay. Maybe that is how it is. And you start accepting all this. And so I love what Ty said. Ty's like, no, resurrect the parts of you that could ask questions without feeling ashamed or guilty or doubting yourself. Resurrect that. If we want to resurrect anything, let's resurrect that. So I'm just shooting the breeze here, trying to give you all a chance, the Christian who's trying to work up the nerve. Maybe you feel like you want to call in and tell us how you think, no, Brady, you're wrong. God does want to be known, and here's how I know. Here's how God can be known, and here's the evidence that God wants to be known. If you think there is such a thing, a reason to believe that God can be known and wants to be known, we'd love to hear it, because I think the God of the Bible in particular has chosen faith over being known. He's chosen belief over being. He wants to be believed. He doesn't want to be known, because if he wants to be known, I think your God would do some different things. Matter of fact, let me ask you. This is Norway. This is the God Norway, right? But before I invited Norway into the podcast studio, if I told you Norway existed, you just can't see him. You can't hear him, but Norway exists. And I said, and Norway wants to be known, not just believed. What would Norway have to do in order to be known, not just believed? Right? So pretend Norway's not here. Now you can see him. Now you don't have to just believe Norway. Now you can know he's here. Why? Because you can see him. You can at least encounter him with your eyes. But if there was a God who says, I want to be known, not just believed, what would that God do to be known, not just believed? And then whatever your answer is, can you say that the God of the Bible has done that? Not in the past, not in books. Like today, if the God wants to be known, not just believed, what would the God do? This is your chance to call in. The link is in the chat. My Unique Monique just dropped the link. All you gotta do is copy and paste that into your browser. Call in and we can talk about it. In the meantime, if there is a atheist or agnostic who wants to call in, because the theists are not calling, you can call in and we can talk for a few. Or maybe you are a theist and you're not trying to call to tell us why you think God wants to be known. Maybe you're getting to the point where you're beginning to have a frustration with the whole faith system. And you're beginning to question, maybe even beginning to doubt. Maybe you want to ask some questions and maybe work through some things. We can even take some time for anybody who is on the verge of deconstruction. Doubt is creeping in. I typically don't try to talk people out of their faith, but I will help you ask the right questions. I will affirm you that you're not crazy for thinking like something's not adding up here. One of the reasons why I do this, people ask me all the time, why do you keep talking about this? I thought you were done with it. You must not be over Jesus. Da, 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 da. No, dummy. The reason why I keep talking about it is because I was that person who felt I was the only one who saw this shit doesn't make any sense. And it was eating me up. It was killing me. And I wish there was somebody that I could turn to say, oh, you too? Oh, you see this contradiction? You see that this is not adding? You too are beginning to doubt I thought I was going crazy. And I want to be for other people the thing that I did not have. That's one of the reasons, one of the many reasons that I have for remaining as vocal as I am. Anyhow, also, if you have a comment that you want me to read, address, you don't want it to be missed, because if I scroll up in the chat, I'm typically scrolling up looking for super chats or names of Patreon supporters that I recognize so that I can read their comments or questions. If you're a Patreon supporter and I recognize you as such, you have a question, you don't have to super chat your question. If you're a Patreon supporter, if I recognize your name, I'm going to read your question or your comment if it seems like it's going to add to the, if it's a question, I'm going to just read it. If it's a comment, I may not take the time to read the comments because you may just be talking to somebody else in the chat. So typically what I look for when I scroll up in the comments is I look for Patreon supporters' names that I recognize. Sometimes I have different names on here than you'd have on the Patreon, which is one of the reasons why I'm interested in shifting to YouTube members, because that way I can just see, oh, this is somebody who financially supports the channel. But I'll scroll up looking for Patreon supporters' names, looking for question marks in those Patreon supporters' names, or looking for super chats. So if you have a comment or question that you want read, try to make sure that your name is the same as it is on the Patreon. Make sure you have a question mark behind it or super chat it. That way I'll be sure to see it. All right. So I am going to scroll up in a second looking for any comments. I'm going to give you a minute to put your comments in the chat. All right. Theists, if you're out there and you'd like to represent your God, your faith, you think he wants to be known, he can be known. Let's talk about it. I don't think he wants to be known. I think he's chosen the lesser of the two. God can be known. God can be believed. Unlike Mary, remember the scripture, many things are, what did Jesus say to Mary? Only one thing is necessary, and Mary has chosen the better. Well, you've got God can be known, God can be believed. I don't think God has chosen the better of those two. If your God simply wants to be believed and not known, but maybe you want to tell me why it's better that God is using faith as opposed to just revealing himself and being known. Why is faith better? Why is it better that God wants to be believed, not known? Maybe you've got an argument for that. All right, I'm gonna scroll up and see if there's any chats that I need to. And I literally, like I said, I am scrolling up looking for names I recognize, question marks along with those names, or super chats. Your super chat can be $1. It doesn't have to be outrageous. Whatever you do, super chat, I do appreciate it because it does help me know that this is worthwhile. And I'll be honest with you, even though I said on, I probably shouldn't say this. Never mind. Sorry. I'm not going to say what I was about to say. Scrolling up. All right. I see a name in the chat, or a name calling in, and it's initials that I'm hoping this is somebody that I know, because the initials look familiar and this person goes by these initials on certain social media, but it may not be that person. So I would love it if it is this person. That would be great. And I'll say why I would love it if this is that person, if it's that person. Otherwise, I won't even say. But I don't see any more super chats. So I'm going to bring this guest into the studio. And the guest, just so you know, your camera is not on. You don't have to turn it on if you don't want to. But if you want to turn your camera on, I will give you a chance to turn your camera on. I'll give you a couple of seconds to do that. In the meantime, I'll read the super chat from My Unique Monique. Thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. Says, this is my offering in honor of Norway. Survived church yesterday. Wasn't reconverted. Headed to my second job. Y'all have a great Monday. Thank you, My Unique Monique. We do need to hear that story about how church was. And if you can't tell it because you don't want to, put anybody on blast or anything, it's all good. But maybe DM me on Facebook, because I definitely would love to hear how it felt just being back in that place. And maybe you put it in the chat. Maybe you already had a conversation about it in the chat. I don't know. But if you can, let's kick it on Messenger, because I definitely want to update there. Henry M, thank you for the $2 super chat. Oh, now the super chats are pouring in all of a sudden. Keep pounding, brother. Appreciate you, yo. Thank you for the $2 super chat. And then one more. Judah Soul. Interesting topic for discussion. The Bible suggests that God wants to be known. We'll call in shortly. Looking forward to it. And thank you for the $4.99 super chat. All right, please welcome to Ichabod AG. What's going on, AG?
Sorry to let you down, brother. I'm not the one you might have thought I was. So.
Also,
I'm a friendly, so it's kind of a double dose. I'm also an atheist, so
okay, all good.
I just wanted to call in and tell you I really appreciate your approach to this thing. And there's a lot of channels out there, and a lot of them are real combative. And something I've seen is, especially the Christian ones, I mean, with maybe one or two exceptions from the atheists, a lot of the Christian ones, I've even tried to call in and been super respectful, but as soon as I bring up talking points that they don't want to discuss, I'm booted. And in some cases blocked for merely presenting a case that they don't want to touch. They just want to do their preaching. And I make it clear that I've heard all the preaching. I'm not for that. So,
can you give us one or two of the issues that you bring up that makes them boot you? I'm very interested in what that might be.
Yeah, particularly one that you talk about a lot is that, and the one that I've discussed a lot is that belief is not a choice. It's simply the evidence is either convincing to you or it's not. So a lot of believers think that not believing in something is an act of rebellion, but it's not that. I mean, I'm living proof of that. I've seen people like that. I was more than open most of my life. It just never came to fruition. And at some point I have to be honest about this thing not coming to fruition. And what do you do with that? You know what I'm saying? What do you do with once that's the case? And Christians are never, not one time, they never do they want to go into that issue. It's just, well, the Bible says this. Okay, well, if that doesn't meet real life, then what? You know, you have to double down on something that ain't adding up. Yeah. And
so can we do this real quick? Because I think this will be helpful for me and for listeners. I think it's called stochastic voluntarism, if I'm not mistaken. The idea of you cannot choose what you believe. You're either convinced by the evidence or you're not. But do you think there's any, because I think there's truth to that, but I do think there is such a thing as motivated reasoning.
True.
Right? Where you can motivate yourself to accept certain things or reject certain things because it's offensive to you, or maybe it's just, you could be in denial. So even the idea of being in denial means like you are presented with convincing evidence, but you don't allow it to convince you, which could be I'm almost willing to say it could be a choice. What do you think about that?
So if I see evidence, which I guess that should be convincing or is convincing to most people, but it's not convincing to me, that's the only thing that matters. I can't, if once I'm convinced of it's irrefutable. If I see something, you know what I'm saying? There might be motives there at work behind the scene, but if it's not convincing enough for me, even though it should be by most people's standards, that just means it's not convincing for me. But this is where that almost gets wiped off the table, because God would have known that. God would have known that these things aren't convincing to everybody, and they're surely not. So really, essentially, you're being punished for your brain working in the way that God created it to be. You know what I'm saying? Where even if you say this demonstration, God demonstrates something that should be convincing evidence. If there's something about the way that my brain works that doesn't find that convincing, it's silly to be tortured for that or punished for that. You know what I'm saying?
Let me put the Christian hat on for a second, because the Christian will say, no, what's happening is it's not that God created your brain to work a certain way and it's not working that way. It's that because you're born in sin and shaped in iniquity, your sin is corrupting your reasoning such that you do. It's not even a matter of believing.
Yeah.
You know that God is there, but you're almost lying to yourself
Right.
about God being responsible for creation or whatever the case might be.
And to me, that's just Christian cop out. It's just Christian cope, because we've seen more than enough examples that that's not the case. So my lady, for example, she's a Buddhist, right? She grew up in Nepal, and they have a rich, deep tradition, right? Couldn't be a more sweeter, empathetic, kind person. And I've always, because I grew up in this faith, believing like, or being taught that the Bible is the way of the world, that this is how things came about. But then I encounter people like these, and I live in the Midwest where it's super diverse culturally. You know what I'm saying? So how people behave and how they act and all that stuff, that sin nature and all that died for me at an early age, because it's not reflective of reality.
Wow.
And I can't substitute that. I can't implement that, because that's what I was told, because what I see does not reflect that. So it's like, you know, that sin nature has always been such a cope, because it really is kind of a coverall, because then you're able to just point the finger back and say, see, he has sin nature and does it. But at the end of the day, I didn't ask for the sin nature. The problem is the programmer. I didn't ask to have sin nature. All I want to do is do good. You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the sin nature? Where does it materialize in real life? There's good people and there's bad people. But most of the time, that comes down to how they were raised, how their brain developed. It's not, they didn't choose to be that way. They didn't choose that. Even if people are malicious, you know, it's like, and I'm not saying there's bad in the world. I don't call it evil, but there's bad in the world, but that's the creation. I didn't come here to do reverse preaching. You know what I'm saying?
No. AG, trust me. Like, you're not the AG that I thought you were, but nonetheless, I'm so glad that you called, bro. I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. And I'll let you keep it moving, but I would like to say one thing about the Bible and maybe to believers. I know probably not many believers in here, but we do all this debating, right? And we have these platforms, and I love the discussion. But the fact that we're still having the dialogue about what the scripture says and what it means really is an indictment on how poorly constructed the story is, more than anything, right? Think of even Christians who are well-versed. What percentage of that thick-ass Bible do they know? What percent? Like a good, maybe 20%, maybe 30 at most. So that rest is a waste of space, and it's just war stories. Really, I've been reading through the Old Testament. It's all these killing stories for kings that are only relevant to that time.
You know what? Saying what you just said, one of the reasons why I want to push people to deconvert is because I think they would have a much better grasp on and appreciation of the Bible if they could see it as, oh, this is how a particular group of people motivated themselves to feel good about their standing in the world, why they were oppressed or why they weren't where they wanted to be in terms of being a nation state. These are the stories that they told themselves. And when you see it as sociology, when you see it as social engineering, it almost makes it come to life in a way that the mythology and the theology it doesn't. And I want that I want you all to experience the richness of, oh, this is how a particular group of people did how they did their sociology. And then you can look at another group and say, oh, and this is how they did it. And this is how they did it. You can have a better understanding of humanity as 100%. Opposed to this is a religion I'm supposed to believe until I die.
And it's so crystal clear once you are not on the inside, once your brain is not warped, like seeing it that way is so clear to me, you know, but just think of what the Bible could have been, right? First of all, God could have made it very clear that he is the creator. All these people from throughout history, we're born in a great time, but people throughout history have died from easily curable ailments, right? Because we didn't know how the body worked. We didn't know how things work. We're still finding it out today on how things work. Could think of all the suffering that had been done. All God could, instead of all those war stories, tell us how this thing functions.
Tell us about bacteria and parasites.
All of it. You know what I mean? Your digestive system. I mean, everything. Microbiology. You could have wrote the book on how this thing functions. Instead, you're giving us stories from kings from 2,000 years ago.
And imagine the praise that the God who would have done that would have been able to garner.
And no other God would be able to hold up, because if this is the one that clearly knows what's going on, everything else is going to fall short. Everything else, and we'd be so much further ahead. You would eliminate so much suffering that has taken place. You know,
no religious wars.
all of it's dead.
I mean, like-
it's either this is the guy, period, or the one, whatever you want to call it. This is it, and everything else is going to fall short. But
yeah,
here we are.
AG, you got to call back
Anyway,
in sometime. I appreciate this,
you,
yo.
brother. Yep, love the show, man. All right,
Get with you.
peace.
All right. All right. I had another caller, and I think that might have been the theist, or maybe not. There's a theist who said he's going to call in a few, but then there was another caller who was in the queue and then dropped out. And then I saw you in the chat. If you want to call back in now, the line is clear to call in. And I'm going to go for at least another half hour. I try to make these at least 3 hours to give enough time for people to, do what you're doing and get in and call in. It's been 2 hours now. I'm going to keep my eye on the chat because I can imagine very soon it's going to bug out. My mic is going to bug out again, but I'll keep my eye on the chat. Y'all let me know if that happens. If you're a theist and you want to call in and tell us why you think God, A, wants to be known and can be known, and how, this is your chance to call in. The link is in the chat. It's pinned in the comments on Facebook. And if you're on Instagram, check my bio. All right. Scrolling up just to make sure I'm not missing any comments. Somebody, there was a Patreon supporter who made a comment that I wanted to put on the screen. Lost it. I'm having a hard time finding it. Okay. This is your chance to call in. You do not have to show your face. As you can see, the last caller did not show their face. If you don't want to or you can't, that's fine. You don't even have to use your real name. I know some shows, they don't like you being anonymous because a lot of trolls like to call in anonymously and fuck around. But I'm still at the beggars can't be choosers stage of this thing. So if you need to shield your identity so that you can call in, that's fine for now. Yeah. If you're just calling in, scroll back like 5 minutes and hear the last call. It was an atheist caller, but I love what the brother had to say. I mean, sometimes it's common sense when you think about some of this stuff. So if you just jumped in, scroll back about maybe 7 or 8 minutes and hear the last caller. It'll be a treat or a challenge depending on what your worldview is. But the line is clear. I am waiting for interlocutors to call in. No rush. I am going to stick around for a few. Thank you all for rocking with the channel, for subscribing. Like while you're here. Make sure you like this episode. Drop a comment, not just in the chat. I don't know if the algorithm prioritizes chat dialogue as much as it prioritizes comments under the video. All right, we do have a caller. This is not the caller who was here a minute ago, but we will see. But it says device not connected, so I can't bring you in. So you may be having connection issues. And just so you know, your name is visible. If you want to change that, you can change your name. And we will wait to see if you get it worked out. Perfect timing because Instagram just stopped. I got to go back to Instagram and reconfigure that. So give me a second to do that while you work out your issues. All right, how do I do this again? Go to Instagram. I need a new stream key. Give me a second. Create live. Title is boom. Audience is public. Stream key is created. All right. And let me see, call in. Where does the stream key go? Oh, boom. Here we go. I'll be back with y'all in 1 second. I just got to get this Instagram thing worked out again. After an hour, they always drop. Okay, Instagram. Or now we have. It looks like we have 3 callers. But all right, one of them is the old one. All right, let me work this out. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna bring in. So Brian, you have 2. I'm gonna kick your first one from the studio, and then. All right, so I'm going to do, because one of them keeps popping in, and I'm going to do Brian and then Stephen, I'm sorry. Brian and Stephen. Okay. Your camera is not on. If you want to turn your camera on, I'll give you a chance to do that, but you don't have to. It's up to you. All right, I'm bringing you into the studio now. All right, so I have Brian and Brian J. Are y'all the same person? Because you keep popping in and out. Let me see. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Ichabod.
Yo, what's up?
Oh, I know who this is. I know who you are, don't I? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Are you the other one that's you're not the other Brian. The other Brian is spelled differently.
Yeah, I can't call it. I don't know who that is.
So there's a Brian in the queue that's Bryan. That's not you, right?
Oh, you can't trust Y guys. That's not me.
Okay, that Brian keeps popping in and out. So after you, it'll be Steven, and then the other Brian, if you can work out what's going on, we'll get that straight up. But what's happening, man?
Oh man, everything. Life is good. It's really good. You know, it was unique yesterday because for the first time in a long time, I was not in church on Easter Sunday. So it was.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just, for those who don't know, Brian called in last week. Me and Brian have been kicking it kind of off, maybe on Messenger. Brian is a former pastor currently in deconstruction, and yesterday was your first time not going to church on Easter in decades, probably.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay,
So
talk to us.
Very different experience, but I must say, you know, I felt somewhat of a pressure, like, man, maybe I should be doing something religious, like watching the History Channel or something.
watching the 10 Commandments.
Exactly, yeah, Mysteries of the Bible, or tuning into a live stream or something. Like maybe I should jump on, you know, a church live stream or whatever. Like, man, but
so you felt guilty a little bit.
Of course, 100%.
Okay.
Religious guilt, like, activated.
Oh, yeah.
How
did you deal with it?
You know what? It's very interesting. I'm dealing with it, and you know, I find myself saying, on the one hand, if God is displeased, then it's imperfect, right? You know, and of course, we talked about this a lot with different guests and you know, throughout your show and online and whatnot, and your different posts. But it's, if I've been set up, then that's just what it is. I can't help it. There's no way around it. So on the hand, if I've just been set up and it's like, well, you know what, you're in sin, and you know, you're defiling the commands, or you're forsaking the fellowship, or what have you, it's like, what can I really do other than follow the program?
So there's, if someone was to say to you, nah, you cannot pay attention to your doubt, you cannot be true to your question, you ought to just fake it until you make it, you would say what?
I would say, you know what? I could see why that makes sense for other people. It wouldn't be true to me. But you know, it would be beneficial to other people in the sense that they would feel comforted. They would feel like, oh man, you know what? These still fighting a good fight. It just wouldn't be true to me.
So once again, I always hesitate when I ask these questions because I don't want to rush your process, but I'm just curious. Did any part of you, aside from the guilt you felt for not going to worship service yesterday on the holiest day of the Christian calendar, did any part of you, like, I remember one year, I need to go back and frame this because this was, I think it was 2021 or 2020. it was the last year that I said something religious on Facebook on Easter. And it was the most bare minimum post that I could make. And I think the post that I made was, it was either Easter or Christmas. And I think the point of the post was, if God did not come incarnate in Jesus, then our creator has never made contact with our planet. And it was sort of my last ditch effort to say, well, shit, if this didn't happen, we just don't have no contact with God. Like, and so I guess what I'm saying to you, what I'm asking you is, did any part of you do anything yesterday that tried to give a nod to, but what if it's still true? Shouldn't I be thankful, or don't I have some reason to celebrate at all yesterday?
Yes. So I put up a post, and it was kind of it was kind of backhanded, but I didn't get really disrespectful. I posted, I got on ChatGPT and I generated a post where there was a cross and Easter eggs and bunnies. And I said, look, this being the highest holy day of the Christian calendar, it's also a very divisive day on the Christian calendar. Because many Christians go at each other about bunnies to eggs. This is pagan. You shouldn't do this or you shouldn't do that. And I said, look, to all my brothers and sisters, friends, family, whoever, happy Easter. You know, whatever that signifies to you. If you want to play with, chickadees and bunnies and fake grass and eggs, go to church, go. I'm not going to tell you one way or another what to do or what to think or how to believe. If that
Did you get any flack from any Christians?
You know what? I didn't. And I was surprised.
Okay.
I know Christians who, specifically, like my spiritual parents, people I came up with in the faith, who would be like disappointed. They'd be like, seriously? Like, you can't say that. That's pagan. But I'm not on that kind of time.
So is this one of those posts where if you ever do like fully come out of the faith and then come out as unbeliever, that they'll go back to this post like, I saw it here?
Oh, sure. And
Okay.
even now, you can look at my life and people can look at things that I do or say and say, yeah, he must have been backsliding. Yeah, I can tell. I'm sure you had those times. It's like, oh man, well, you know what? Yeah, Brady's not with us anymore, or he was not among us.
Well, no, I hit it. I hit it very well. I was still going to church. I didn't come out until 2022, January of 2022. I was still going to church up until maybe early January 2021. And it was the middle of COVID, and we had just started meeting back in person.
Wow.
And just when they started meeting back in person, I think I went twice and then never again.
Wow. That's saying something. But to your original point, God does not want to be known. Like I was like, man, what do I say to that? And if I'm, being a God advocate, I would argue for the nature of knowing anyone from a philosophical standpoint. Do I actually know anyone? As much as I converse with Brady Goodwin on the live stream, do I know Brady Goodwin? And even more so, in terms of an intimate relationship, like with my wife, do I really know her, or do I know as much as revealed to me? So does anyone actually know anyone? And so are we putting an unfair expectation on God in the sense that the nature of knowing in relationship is as much as we can know someone?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, let's work through that. As much as we can know someone, I do think when you're dealing with sentient beings and communicative beings, because like I can know about my Dundee Award from The Office, right? I can't know it because it does not have, as far as I know, the ability to exercise self-disclosure. I can know about it. I can't know it. So as much as it can be known, I can know it. Now the question is your wife, right? You can know her to the degree, A, that she can be known, and B, that she's willing to reveal herself to you or make herself known to you. The question would be, to what degree can God be known, and to what degree is God making itself known? And that's where I think the meat of this is.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair, and I appreciate you clarifying that. Now, from a biblical standpoint, one can argue that he's made himself known through the person of Jesus Christ.
In the last days, God spoke to our fathers through the prophets, but in these last days, he's spoken to us in Son. Matter of fact, the Son there, I think, is inauthorous. Man, there's no, it's not in the Son. In the Greek, it just says in Son. He's made himself known to us in Son. Like, that's how we know God. But they could say that. I think the not even the people in that time necessarily. I think the only people who could say that are the people who really experienced the physical Jesus, or even the Spirit of God. If the Spirit of God was how they knew him, like, even if they say, I know him spiritually, he's made himself known, he's revealed himself to me, I feel this stirring in my heart, or the Spirit of God, calls out from within us, allowing us to cry, Abba, Father. I struggle with saying that is God's self-disclosure and self-revelation, because you sort of have to take even that by faith.
Sure.
That this warm feeling, the butterflies, the whatever that you get, that it's one thing and not another thing. You can't know it. You kind of just have to believe it. Whereas with your wife, you don't take that by faith. You're like, that's her.
But I do.
I don't know. Talk to me. What are you thinking? Talk to me.
I do take her by faith, and she takes me by faith. And, we've had these conversations between me and her.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, well, how do I know you're not out doing dirt, right? It's, well, no, you don't know. And so I have believed in terms of marriage, like, you don't really know. All you do is you take that person by faith. You really do. You say, well, I trust, if we define faith as trusting in someone's faithfulness, I trust that you're doing what you're doing, and I don't examine, or I don't need to monitor. I don't necessarily need to be like, oh, well, did you really do that? Or did you really, we were at the grocery store, when you say at the grocery store, I'm going to receive it by faith. You told me that? Cool. All right, good. Now, if you give me reasons to disbelieve.
Yeah. Would you agree, though, that that's different?
That's something else. Like,
knowing what the person is doing is different than knowing that the person is able to do anything at all. You know what I mean? Like, I think when I talk about knowing God, I'm not just talking about, do you know whether your God is truthful? Do you know whether you can trust your God's word? How do you know that the thing that you're calling God is actually God? I don't think you have any question that your wife, like, knowing what she's up to is one thing. Knowing that she's being faithful is one thing. Knowing that she's the same person that you marry, like, you know how she looks. You know her idiosyncrasies. You know what her nonverbal communication means because you've been around. Like, I guess I'm talking about knowing in the sense of knowing that the book of Hebrews, right? Whoever comes to God must first believe that God is. This is before you even get to knowing anything about God. You just got to believe that God is, as opposed to God helping you to know that God is. I think that's what I'm talking about here.
You make a great point, and I've preached on that in the past, that belief is a prerequisite for faith. So I would agree with you on that point, that there's so much that we have to essentially assume and believe ahead of time without knowing.
Yeah.
So,
which begs the question, how do you know that you're not just front loading the God stuff as opposed to actually know God is really there to be known?
Yeah. Now, to that point, therein lies the challenge. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, you're right. I would firmly agree with you that, do I know him? I believe in what Paul says
Mhm.
in 1 Corinthians 13:12. Now I know in part,
Mm.
right? But then I shall know fully. So
Okay.
I take that, it's a progressive revelation. It's,
Mhm.
I won't know fully until I am in eternity, per se, or at least on the other side of eternity.
So let's stick with the part. You can know
Sure.
in part now, and
Sure.
later you'll know fully, even as you're fully known, as the text says. God, it's sort of unfair. There's an unfair advantage, right? He fully knows you. You only get to know him in part. So there's this lopsidedness in the knowledge. But let's focus in on the part that you can know. Okay, so you know him in part. What do you know? As opposed to what you have to believe, what do you know about this God?
Okay. So if I were to say, okay, what do I know as a believer? I know that God is faithful. Now, I think that leaves a wide open hole, and I'm fully aware that leaves a wide open hole,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's experiential. I can say I know that God is faithful because certain things have happened where I have said, okay, I prayed for this and God showed up. But again, totally wide open, because you can shoot holes in that all day. Well, hey, it worked for you, but it didn't work for Frank. Frank's dead.
Mm.
That makes it that much more challenging. And I accept that.
And maybe we could put the magnifying glass on that a little bit more. When you say you know that God is faithful, how would you distinguish that from a similar but different statement that you simply believe that God is faithful because you read accounts of his faithfulness?
Well, again, it's experiential. I would say, okay, I know that God is faithful because I prayed and received what I prayed for. I know that God is faithful because he has carried through various circumstances, trials, tribulations, from a religious standpoint. I can say, well, yeah, I know that God is faithful. I know that my Redeemer lives, right? Now, again, that's based on experience, not necessarily objective fact.
If you came to me and said, yo, I was in a house fire, and I said, how do you know you were in a house fire? Maybe you just believe you were in a house fire. And you would say, well, here's my experiences, right? I felt the flames, the nerve endings in my body reacted and harshly reacted to the flames because it was destroying my flesh. And matter of fact, look at my 3rd-degree burns. How else would I explain these 3rd-degree burns? And if I couldn't tell you that there was some other way to explain your 3rd-degree burns, I think we would both feel like you're justified in saying, you know, you were in a house fire. You have the memory, you saw it. Maybe there are firefighters who rescued you, and you've got the burns. I think we could substantiate you don't just believe you were in a house fire. You know you were in a house fire because there's no other way to explain all of those things. When it comes to what you know about your experience with God, is there no other way to explain answered prayer and the times that you feel like God came through? Is there no other way to explain those? Because if there are other ways, it could just be you're more comfortable believing this is a better explanation than chance, or maybe somebody heard you had a need and they met it and you gave God the credit for that. Is there no other way to explain the things that you're saying? I know God was faithful because of X, Y, and Z.
And to that point, there are other ways to explain it. And that is where you go right back to faith. And you say, well, okay, I'm believing it by faith. But no, to your point, I have examined that over time and said, yeah, I could explain it a different way. Like, circumstances aligning. I got into that house. I got approved for the house, or doors open for me. I got a certain job I applied for. But there are things I could say. Well, hey, I knew people on the job. I actually knew knew people through like 6 degrees of separation who owned the
Yeah.
house. So
Mhm.
there are ways I can explain it, say, maybe it wasn't prayer. Maybe it
Mhm.
wasn't God's move. So you do have that fork in the road.
Right. And I'm not trying to take a testimony away from you. All I'm trying to do is say, so then I would be a little slower to say I know God experientially, as opposed to no, I'm believing that this was God. And that's okay that I believe it, and I can't say I know it.
Well, taking off my God advocate hat, I had a conversation with my wife about this. She asked me, a sincere question. She said, "Hey, do you love God?" And I said, "I have professed to love what I thought I knew." I said, as far as I could say, I thought I knew this God. Yeah, I said, of course, I love God. But then as I say, well, wait a second. What do I know? What do I really know? And what was I taught? What have I, presupposed? What was I led to believe? What do I really know? So, your question, struck me because I was like, man, dang, I might have a couple arguments for it, but it's all circular. It's honestly circular. I don't think that the challenge is, I don't think many Christians can say, well, yeah, absolutely. Brady's wrong. So, yet again, you got us on the ropes, man.
Well, and this is not a cheap shot, but one of the things that I go back to, and it actually became a very helpful thing for me, was when I had to reconcile that other people of other religions, they've got testimonies too of how they got the job or how they escaped the car just missed them by a millimeter. They've got testimonies too. And I have to ask myself, okay, so is my God answering their prayer even though they're praying to a different God? Is God in cahoots with their God? Or are they beneficiaries of fortunate coincidences just like I am, and the unfortunate ones just like I am, and we're all explaining these things in our own individual superstitious ways based on the vocabulary and worldview that was provided for us? Because how do I explain their blessings? How do I explain my God, who's a jealous God, allowing some other deity to get credit for blessings that he's giving? Or do I just say, oh no, Satan blessed them, just like Satan was, trying to give Jesus the world? But then so God is allowing Satan to just go around hooking people up with blessings to keep them from coming to Jesus. And why is my God? There's so many, like, the labyrinth of things you have to get into to explain why people who are not believers have testimonies of blessings too. It was too much. And when I deconverted, it was like such a weight off my shoulder, because I'm like, now I can be part of humanity, and I don't have to worry about, man, they're being deceived. I mean, I know they think Allah just saved them, but that was a demon, or some kind of way they got to get from where they are thanking Allah for that to thanking Jesus for that. And I don't know how they're ever going to get there. It was a huge weight when I just said, oh, that's just the way the world works. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And it's as simple as that.
Wow. Well, I think the Christian argument is always going to be there's common grace, right? Like, it rains on the to the unjust life. So they might get a little sliver of grace, but we really get the whole thing. They get a slice. We get
yeah. Yeah. But you know what? The thing about that, though, because Christianity is the child of Judaism, and Judaism's whole claim to fame is we are God's chosen people. So we get the special blessings. God's going to give us a land. He's going to make us his people. He's going to give us his special blessing, all that. And so if you come from the trajectory of, well, yeah, we're God's special people, then you kind of do walk around saying, yeah, there's common grace, but we get the special blessings of God. And I told somebody on Facebook the other day, I have survivor's guilt. That's why I spend so much time talking about this faith to people who still believe, because I'm like, I used to have to do all those things that you all are still doing, and I got out of it, and I'm so relieved, and I'm rejoicing, and my life is so much better now. But I have survivor's guilt because I'm like, damn, y'all are still doing all that. You're still twisting yourself into these theological pretzels to make it make sense. And I'm over here just kicking my feet up, just chilling, living life, enjoying it. I feel bad for surviving Jesus, knowing that y'all are still dying to yourselves daily.
You know, man, you make a great
That's
point, because I can say I experienced that to an extent, right? Like being now removed from the church, so to speak. I'm like, man, you know, I feel like you have to do this and you have to go through this ritual. And I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Like, you know, nothing, lightning didn't strike. You know, I'm not punished. You know, I didn't go down into flames and the grave open and swallow me whole. Like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And my family's okay. And I'm not, you know, I'm not caught up in sin and backslidden.
Yeah. It's a journey, bro. It's a journey. I respect you for going through it. And like I said, I would never, ever rush anybody through it, but I appreciate you asking the questions and not turning away from the answers that don't look the way they would need to look for you to remain comfortable. So, yeah.
No doubt, no doubt. I'm just ingratiating myself in study. I said, I've given so much of my life to studying the Bible. It would be absolutely foolish, really, to say I'm not going to give considerable time to anything else.
Yeah.
It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
Even if it's like, you know what, I'm trying to disprove it, or I'm trying to say, well, Brady's false, Bart Ehrman is false, Paul is false. You know, I'm listening to everybody and saying, okay, I'm just going to be objective and say, do they have a point, or are they just dirty, rotten sinners?
Well, there are very many Christians who will tell you Brady's a dirty, rotten sinner. And in their worldview, I don't deny it, but that's got nothing to do with my rejection of Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Well, the thing is, it's flipping the script and saying, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
And what if
that was the big
religion
toxic? Can I confess to you? I never did that as a believer. I never said, what if I'm wrong? Ever.
Wow.
Until 2014, 2015, never. So I became a believer in 1992. I never said, what if I'm wrong? Which is crazy as hell.
No doubt. No doubt.
I even say it now. As an atheist, I now say, what if I'm wrong? I think the intellectual humility to say that is key to learning. I never said it as a believer. So just to say that as a believer and not to immediately reject, but to just ask those questions, kudos to you, man. Props to you.
Appreciate that. No, that's really where the place that I can only live in that arena, because if I don't, then I'm gonna presuppose something that is untrue. And I've done that for so long, where I said, oh yeah, you know what? That idea makes sense, and I received it on faith. Like, oh well, hey, don't touch that person because their demons can jump on you. Oh man, well, oh okay, well you know better than me. All right, well, hey, pray this way. Okay, well, cool, and all these different things. So where I'm like, wait a second, I did a lot of stuff that wasn't even in line with the Bible. And so what I'm saying nowadays, and I'm challenging my wife on this, I said, Christians, by and large, I've never met one Christian, even myself, who has not had to step outside the Bible to live by the Bible.
Whoa.
You have to create something else.
What do you mean? Break that down.
Well, I mean, for example, like we'll say, for example, okay, well, God is love. and Christianity is a religion of love. And I'm like, that's not the whole story. And to preach that gospel, you have to change the warmongering of the Old Testament. You can't preach that gospel and say Jesus will return and he's going to be bathed in the blood of his enemies. Like you can't just make it one thing that you want to make it and step outside and then step back inside. Or you can't be homophobic.
Well, see, for me, the beauty of the Christian faith for me was all of those seemingly ideas that were in tension. I mean, I literally preach this, that all of God's attributes, whether it be his wisdom, his love, his justice, his mercy, his holiness, his wrath, all of them show up in the cross, because you can see God being angry at sin. You could also see him being merciful, but you also see his holiness, but you can see his love and I found ways to make it all make sense. So I didn't feel like I was stepping outside of the Bible. I just thought the Bible was so replete with all these different ideas that it was the theologians, or maybe even just the Christian's job, to learn how it all fit together to give us this holistic picture of who God was.
100%. I'm with you, because I've done that and said, well, yeah, I was, and of course, I know you taught the same in Bible college, to say, well, two scriptures seem to disagree, they will resolve themselves in a higher tension.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't know, but the tension is there. And actually, we were taught to embrace the tension.
Yeah, to live in the tension. Exactly.
This doesn't connect. And God, it's all about the authorship. But then it keeps happening, and you say, well, wait a second. Something's up here, and I have to work. And if I'm making it work, is it working on its own?
Yeah. Jay Witt, who used to be one of my co-hosts on this channel, Jay Witt would say, one of the key marks of the Bible's humanity gets reinterpreted as one of the marks of its divinity. All of the contradictions becomes his ways are higher than our ways anyway. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts anyway. And if I could understand the mind of God, then it wouldn't be God. I'd be smarter than God. The shabbiness of the Bible ends up becoming one of its selling features.
Wow.
Yeah.
No doubt. And so that's
there
where the challenge is. I'm like, man, we have to be antithetical in order to be obedient.
I think I lost you. You still there?
But where does
I'm losing you.
Work in anything else to say against it? Oh, can you hear me?
You're going in and out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate where you're coming from. I don't know where you're going, but I love your journey. Feel free to call back in anytime, B. I hope he heard that, but he may be gone. I'm not sure. Which is weird, because the other Brian is in the queue, but the other Brian says, I keep losing my connection. I'm just listening, so skip me. Thanks. So both the Brians, we ended up having technical issues, but at least we got one conversation in. And then Stephen was in the queue, but then it says device not connected. This is a day for bad connections. But if anybody who was in the queue wants to try to call back in now, this will be a chance. If you're new to Ichabod, my name is, I go by Be Good, the host of this channel here. And above my head, up above my, there's a song I used to like as a kid. Used to say, up above my head, I hear music in the air. And now we got Nahweh up above my head as the resident god of Ichabod. Okay, so Stephen, looks like you're back in the queue, but it says device not connected, and then you left the queue. It's a bad day. It's a bad day. Here goes Stephen again. Let's try it. It says device not connected, so I can't bring you into the studio. Not sure what the issue would be. I see you in the queue, but it says device not connected. This is a chance to call in. Hold on, just dropped a private note. Steven says, okay, let me try again. Okay, I'll be here. I'm going to be here for at least another, it's been 2 hours and 40 minutes. I'll be here for at least another 20 minutes. Y'all, is the mic good? Y'all let me know if the mic is good, because it seems like it should have bugged out again by now. Matter of fact, let me do the switch to see if I can. All right, I just switched the mic, so if it's going to bug out, hopefully I'll cut it off at the pass. I'm still seeing Steven says device not connected. So, but if there is another theist who wants to call in, tell us why you think God can be known and wants to be known. I think the God of the Bible in particular, other gods as well, I think these gods don't want to be known. I think the evidence is clear. They don't want to be known. They want to be believed, not known. And if you think that statement is incorrect or needs to be challenged, this is your chance to call in. I'll drop the link in the chat again, just so you ain't got to go searching for it. Bam, there it is in the chat. If you're on Facebook, it's the top comment. If you're on Instagram, it's in my bio. I need to start putting more episodes on, or snippets or something on TikTok, because once we get to 1,000 subscribers on TikTok, I can then go live on TikTok as well. But I hardly do anything on TikTok ever. It's just too much. There's too many platforms, and I'm an old head. I'm old school with mine. I was actually dating a woman one time. She was younger. She was in her, she was like late 20s, 28, 29. She told me, because I'm not on TikTok, that's why I don't have the traction that other channels have on YouTube. You got to be on TikTok. I just was like, I'm not invested in it. I'm not going to that was like a year and a half ago, and I still never invested. Steven, I saw you, but then you exited again. Here you go. It still says device not connected, which means you're backstage. I just can't add you. I don't know what the issue is. I don't know, but I will be back on tomorrow. I'll be back on Tuesday. I'm going to be doing this at least until I start traveling in the summer. I'll be on Mondays and Tuesdays around 3:30, and I'll be on till about 6:30 on Mondays and Tuesdays. If you're out there and you're saying, yo, we're at work, do it later. Maybe I will get on later tomorrow so that I could be on at least till about 7. That way, those who are like, waiting after work and you want to call in after work, you can call in as well. So maybe I'll try to do 4 to 7 tomorrow. I'll see. Mo Wheat says, you have pleased Norway, so your mic works in perfection. That's what's up. I'm a servant of Norway. All right. Yeah, Steven, I still see you backstage. It says device not connected, and so I can't add you. Don't know what that's about. Anybody else want to call it? I never check the Facebook comments when I'm on. Let me see what y'all been saying on Facebook. Maybe I'm getting roasted on Facebook, and I should have been paying attention. Let me go to the stream. No, it's not a lot of comments, so nope. All right. No, but I really enjoyed these conversations. Okay, Steven put a note in the backstage. Okay, cool. I will try another day. Appreciate you staying on. Yep. Says, I also believe God wants to know us. I appreciate the comment. Can't wait to talk to you. But it's been 2:44. I don't see any other calls coming in. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end it here. And I'll just be back on tomorrow. So Thank y'all so much for rocking with the channel. Make sure you like this episode. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Shout out to all of the Patreon supporters who rock with Ichabod, the squad. And I will be, I forgot to tell you, I'll be on this Wednesday. I'll be back on the line with Matt Dillahunty. And probably because I'm going to be on the line this Wednesday with Matt, I may not do a Thursday episode. So it may just be today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. But I will drop a note in the community on YouTube so y'all know. But hey, much love, y'all. Have a great day, and I'll talk with y'all next time. Peace.